All right, everybody, welcome to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you so very much for joining us here on the set. We appreciate your followership and your viewership. Make sure that wherever you're watching us from, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or IG, that you like, follow, subscribe, comment, share, so that you don't miss anything that's going on here on the set of Studio B. And remember, wherever you access your podcast from, Spotify, Apple Music, Google, Pandora, you can find Studio B on those same platforms as well. So everybody, we have a very, 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 very special guest in the house today. I have Pastor Charles Anderson, a good friend of mine, good friend of the ministry, doing some phenomenal work. Pastor Anderson is the director of program and housing for the Crosswalk Centers, and he's also the dean at TUMI, which is the Urban Ministry Institute. Some exciting things are going to be coming down the pike of that as well. But Pastor Anderson, thank you so very much for joining us here on the set of Studio B, man. How you doing today?
Man, I'm blessed. I appreciate you giving me the invitation. You know, whenever you're passionate about any subject, whenever you get the opportunity to talk about that subject, it just makes your heart pitter-patter.
Yeah.
So I've been up half the night waiting on my opportunity to let everybody know. So I'm excited. Thank you so much.
Well, Charles Anderson is, and I'm not going to go through this entire resume, but he is a native of Alexandria, Louisiana. He is an Army veteran of 10 years, and he's been a pastor of several different churches. God has had his hand on him for quite some time. But what we're talking about today is that you've been heavily involved in prison ministry for quite some time. And everybody behind the scenes, whoever's watching, let me tell you how this conversation kind of came about. This brother is really, really deeply entrenched in prison ministry here in the state of Texas. And he recently just received an accommodation from Governor Greg Abbott from all of your work inside of the prisons here in Texas. So congratulations to that.
Thank you so much.
And you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yes.
And we got into a conversation off camera, man, that really opened up my eyes. And so I wanted to bring it to the people here on Studio B, because I know that this is a situation that everybody, maybe not everybody, but a majority of people can directly relate to. And this is talking about reentry, prisons, prison system, prison reform, and all of the things that kind of go along with it. Especially in the culture that we're in right now, you're hearing prison reform all over the world, and it's just a hot topic right now. And what better person to talk about this kind of stuff than Pastor Charles Anderson? So let me tell us a little bit about yourself, man, and how you got into this particular form of prison ministry.
So what ended up happening in my life is I was in the military and accustomed to wearing a uniform every day. And when I got out of the military, I started working for the Missouri Department of Criminal Justice, another job where I could be wearing a uniform every day. So I liked that, and it was in the security field. And so I started working for them. But a strange thing happened while I was working for them. I'm spending a lot of time with a lot of men that are incarcerated and realizing that these are folks from my neighborhood. These are folk that I grew up with. These are folk that had not been for the grace of God, there I would be. And so I'm spending all of this time with them, and then God just began to put a burning in my heart to just begin to minister to them. So this started off with me just ministering to men on the work site that were incarcerated. But something strange happened after that, and I'm just shortening a long story because I end up moving here to Texas. I end up working for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and the same thing happened. But something happened. After spending years ministering to men, I kept seeing men go home and come back. Kept seeing men go home and come back, and which is frustrating because I've talked to you for years. We've had a plan of what you're going to do to go back. I know that you've accepted Christ in your life. You're ready for the world. Why are you back in the penitentiary? And so I would sit down and talk to them, and they would say, hey, then I was just Big A. Hey, Big A or Sergeant A. They was like, hey, there's no support out there for us. I get out there, and the Texas Department of Criminal Justice expects me to start my whole life, regardless of how long I was incarcerated, with $100 and a good luck. And so while I was still working for them, I started my first halfway house. in Channelview, Texas, 20-man halfway house. And I promise you, I was living on site and still working for TDCJ, and God gave me a PhD in how to do reentry in those first couple of years of living on site, living with the guys and dealing with the things that they have to endure every day when it comes to reentry. And so that's kind of how I ended up in this space. And so I ended up getting sick. I went into heart failure. And when I went into heart failure, I watched my business crumble because I wasn't there. And so as I was restarting my business, that's when I got connected with the Crosswalk Center by one of my mentors, Ricky Bradshaw.
Shout out to Ricky Bradshaw.
Yeah. And so they came to Ricky and said, hey, we want to get in this field of reentry, and we know that you do a lot of prison work. Can you kind of help guide us through this? And Ricky said, I'm not the person that you need to talk to. Charles Anderson is the person that you need to talk to. And so I moved into their building just to lease space to restart my business. And after about a year of that, I was approached by their board and said, hey, we want to do one or two things. Either we'll help you grow your brand, or you could join our team and head that department. And so I chose to join that team and head the program and housing department because it gives me an opportunity to do what God has called me to do, and that's minister to men that are coming out of incarceration.
So Pastor Anderson, let's kind of dive into the deeps and kind of take this methodically. When you're talking about prison, when you're talking about release, when you're talking about inmates, when you're talking about the penitentiary, all of those have stigmas attached to them, halfway houses, and all of these other things, right? And so when I'm talking about the prison system, and you see that term kind of in a broad space, what is this prison system? What is the prison system? So
in the United States, we incarcerate or have incarcerated at this moment 2.8 million people, men and women and children, are incarcerated in the United States.
Right now.
Right now. The last statistics was May of this year, 24th. I got the report, 2.8 million men and women and children incarcerated. And included in that system is those in the penitentiaries, state jails, juvenile facilities, federal facilities, those that are civil committed, and I'm sure you're going to ask me what that means as we go forth. Those that are right now in the county jails waiting for trial. Within all those numbers right now, 2.8 million men and women. Now watch this. The United States is the largest incarcerator in the world. Texas is the largest incarcerator in the United States. Harris County is the largest incarcerator in Texas. Every year, from 13 to 16,000 men and women are paroled in Harris County. At the same time, 13 to 16,000 are sent to the penitentiary in Harris County. Wow. So we're not making any ground. We're just rotating people in and out.
It's a revolving door. Amen. So this whole thing about prison system that is getting a whole lot of attention, we've talked about it here on the set of Studio B numerous times, and talking about closing some of these gaps that still exist in our land. And the prison system seems to be this big monster that you really can't grab or put your hands around. As you said, you got 13 to 16,000 going out, you got 13 to 16,000 going in. So there's literally no leeway being made. So if you're talking about the prison system and where we are right now, what are some of the challenges that you see? Because in our conversation, everybody, let me just break this down. When I said that not everybody, but a lot of people can relate to it, at least in my family. I love my people. We've had many different conversations about it, but I have some people in my family who've been in that prison system and who have been in that prison system at the level by which we will get ready to talk to. I'm talking years, stints, right? They've been in there, 5 years, 10 years. My uncle was in there 30 plus years. And so when he comes out of that prison system, he has to integrate back into another system. And so what are some of the challenges that are facing those who have been released from prison, who've done their time, and now they have to reacclimate back into society? What's some of the challenges that they face?
Well, there's three major challenges, but before I get to them, let's paint a picture of what's going on here. First of all, most people that are incarcerated because they don't know how to navigate life. And so they're incarcerated for not being able to navigate life. They go to the penitentiary, and the penitentiary don't teach them how to navigate life. It teaches them how to navigate the penitentiary.
No, please walk here, because that's so. Go ahead, because that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah. So it teaches them how to navigate the penitentiary, and so they make parole or they discharge their sentence, and they are released from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, but they still don't know how to navigate life. And not only do they not know how to navigate life, they mentally revert back to the age they were when they were incarcerated. And so if their last free moment was 20, they could be 60 getting out of the penitentiary, and then they start acting like a 20-year-old.
Now, man, Pastor Anderson, so a 55-year-old is a 55-year-old in years and maybe even in stature. But he's literally, when he went in at 16, 17, 18, he's 55, but he has the mentality and operates like an 18-year-old.
In freedom.
Which is just phenomenal to think about. And those things we don't really take into account when we release them. But continue on these challenges. So continue on with the thing.
So then there's three major challenges that they have to deal with, barriers they have to deal with. First of all, is suitable housing. Here's a problem. The problem is the places that will lease or rent to men with felonies are in communities that they don't need to live. And so you are, after all of these years, and mentally I go back to the age I was when I got incarcerated, and that age might be when I was getting high, the age might be when I was robbing and stealing. You're gonna put me back in that same environment that I left, and it's gonna seem familiar to me. So it's not gonna be long when struggle comes. If I don't have support, then I'm going right back to that situation, which takes me to the second thing, is employment. Now watch this. You're going to take a man that for however many years that he has been incarcerated, which the only thing that he has control over in incarceration is how he lets other people treat him. And so they have a big bond of respect. Everything is, I'm not going to let this person disrespect me. You're not going to disrespect me. So you take that man that's been incarcerated for 20 years, and all he has is that, his respect. You get out, he has no work history. He does not know how to package himself, how to sell himself. And so he's relegated to taking a job at a fast food restaurant. And so he goes to that fast food restaurant, and he's bombarded by a supervisor and everybody around him that's a teenager that's just disrespectful. And so now he's in a situation that every day he feels like, if this gentleman says one more thing to me, I'm going to do what I know how to do, and that's put my hands on him. But I'm not trying to go back to the penitentiary. And so because of that, I have the palsy. I'm just stuck. I don't understand the rhythm of this world. I understand the rhythm of the penitentiary, but I'm not in the penitentiary. And so I don't know how to make a decision, because I don't know if that's a decision that's made from my mentality that was in the prison, or a mentality that's wrong for society. So now I'm somewhere in the middle, in limbo, and I don't know what to do. And that's why we watch old movies, or we see people and you see them go right back to the penitentiary, is because that's familiar to them. They don't know how to navigate life out here. And if they don't have those three things, and the third thing is community. So stable housing, a job with a living wage, and community. Those are the top three things that they need to reintegrate. But here's the problem. The problem is sometimes they reintegrate with family, and family don't have a clue.
Now walk with this, because
this
is what hit Pastor Holman, okay? Because they've been gone for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever length of time it is, and the family wants to surround that person with love, with respect, welcome them back into the family and love them as much as they possibly can. And we don't understand on the outside the whole mentality of what's going on inside of their head because they've been incarcerated for so long. Mm-hmm. And so we wind up getting frustrated with the process and ask ourselves the question, well, you just got out. Why are you doing these things to go back in? So explain that whole thing about the community aspect. And when I make that call to mama, when I make that call to my wife, to my husband, whoever it may be, and what's the best answer that person can give that inmate that's getting ready to come out?
The best thing that person can do for that inmate getting ready to go out, if they've been incarcerated for any length of time, is let them go to a halfway house.
Wow, so not let them come home.
Not let them come home. I know that sounds harsh, but here's the problem. While they were incarcerated, if they've been there over 5 years, I think they've been institutionalized. And institutionalization just means that you've been programmed to accept a certain cultural rule or way of doing things. So you think about the penitentiary is able to control vast numbers of men with small staff. The only way that you can control that many men with small staff is that you play this mental game, not a physical game. There's no way that you can control that many men physically. So you have to control them mentally. And so to control them mentally, you do things that keep them off a little bit. You wake them up at 3:30 in the morning and feed them breakfast. Mm-hmm. You feed them lunch by 10. You feed them dinner by 4. So they're never on any kind of shift. You make them cut the lights off at 10 at night. TV, everything. It goes dark, it's quiet, lights out, that's it. Lock the place down at that time. You tell them when to go to work, when to come back. You tell them when to go to the gym, when to come back. You tell them when they can watch TV, when they can't watch TV. You tell them when they can go to the bathroom, when they can't, when they can go to the shower, and how many showers they can take. Everything in their life you control. You tell them what to eat. You don't give them a whole lot of choices. They don't have no choice unless they doing some commissary, and that's food that's not good for them because that food is full of starch, which is going to clog up their arteries over years. And so you tell them what to eat, and you only give them a couple of choices. And so you think about this. Here's a frustration that I have in one of my facilities. My new facility where guys come in when they first get in, guys get frustrated because guys come there and they won't wash dishes. And I have to sit them all down, and I had to do this Wednesday. I had to sit all my guys down, and I had to say, look, let's look at this from a psychological standpoint. This guy just did 30 years. For 30 years, what he did is grabbed a tray, got in a line, they put food on the tray, he sat down and ate the food, he got up and put it in a hole, and he walked away. So he gets out, comes to the halfway house, he gets a plate, he gets food put on the plate. He eats the food, and he puts his plate in the sink, and he walks away. And you frustrated because you're saying he won't clean up after himself. But he's been institutionalized that the only dealings that he should have with that plate is to make sure that it gets in the hole or in the sink.
Wow.
That's a byproduct of institutionalizations. And those are the type of things that we don't understand as family members when our family comes out, that they have been preconditioned to do things a certain way. That's why if I got up at 3 o'clock for 30 years and started my day, guess what? I don't need no alarm clock. Yeah. I don't need nobody to shake me. At 3 o'clock, I'm up. And I'm used to going to eat breakfast. So now I'm at your house. It's 3 o'clock. I love you. You done been real good to me. Yeah, you got a whole room set up for me. Man, you got a king-size bed set up for me. I got a dress. I got stuff I ain't never had. You got me a flat screen TV. You might even have a little refrigerator in there so I can have some water at night. You got everything. You done bought me new tennis shoes and clothes and all this kind of stuff. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm up, and I'm ready to go eat breakfast. And I'm terrified because if I go eat breakfast and start cooking at 3 in the morning, everybody in the house sleep, and I'm gonna start waking folk up. And so one or two things happen. Either I sit in my room just stuck, awake, rocking, shaking, just thinking, don't know what to do. Or I go and I start cooking because I'm hungry, and then the rest of the house is like, man, you got to do something with your loved one, man. What's going on with him? I got to work in the morning. I need my sleep. We didn't get to bed until 12, and this brother up at 3 o'clock in the morning. What can we do? And so because you don't understand that the Texas Department of Criminal Justice woke him up at 3 o'clock in the morning for 30 years.
Wow.
Started his life off. He was ready to go to work and do things. Then that's frustrating. And here's the thing. The other thing is that the Texas Department of Criminal Justice has taught him is not to confront anybody. So even if he's feeling a certain kind of way, he sees you as family members as the boss. And so he can't articulate or say to you what's really going on with him. Because first of all, he don't know what institutionalization is. He don't know why he do what he do. We played the psychological game with him. He don't know there was been played with him. And then you are frustrated, but he's not going to confront you. He's not going to do anything that might get you to put him out, because while he's incarcerated, if he gets to be a problem in a dorm, the way we control him is we just move him out of that environment. So he could be in this living environment today, and tomorrow I can tell him to go to a different unit. You didn't call chain. I can tell him to go to a different housing unit. I can send him to a different part, a different situation. I can send him from living with 52 people to living with 2. I can send him from living with 2 people to living by himself for years.
Wow.
And so he's not going to be confrontational to you because he does not want you to put him out because you his lifeline. If you put him out, what he gonna do in life? But you're not equipped and don't know how to help him re-enter society. So when I say the best thing that you can do for him when he gets ready to get out, if he's been there any length of time, is have him go to a halfway house. But wait a minute, stop. Let's just pause right there. Not just any halfway house.
Not just any halfway house.
Not just any halfway house.
There's a lot of those.
Because there's a whole lot of halfway houses.
It's a money grab.
Come on now. If you don't pay me by Friday, you're getting put out by Monday, and you don't have a place to live. See, you can't be homeless on parole. If you homeless on parole, there's a blue one out for you as soon as they find you. And they're not going to look for you, because they know eventually homeless, you're going to be stopped by the police, you're going to do something, and when they run your name, blue one's going to come up, send you back to the penitentiary. So now you homeless running the streets, which is a bad situation. So they're not gonna look for you. So there's halfway houses that pry on that they live from there. And the great thing that the city of Houston has done, even though it was hard 2 years ago, is they started making halfway houses be licensed and permitted. And so that means that you have to have a minimum standards. You have to have pest control, because before the thing that plagued most halfway houses is they were bed bug infested. And so guys was getting eaten alive, and the owners weren't doing anything to try to alleviate the problems, telling you to go to Family Dollar and get you a can of that spray. But bed bugs is a big issue in Texas. The hotel industry fights that daily because it's such a big issue in Texas. And bed bugs live in wood. And what are most beds made of?
Yeah.
Oh, come on now. And so what are our box springs made of? And so here you are, you're in this situation and you just don't know what to do. And your family don't know what to do. So you go to a halfway house. If it's not a halfway house that has programming, that is really concerned with helping you re-enter society, you're in a bad situation, because I'm out. I got my little $50 to $100. I can use that up in a day. Think about that. Think about if you got out of the penitentiary, or not penitentiary, if I took you to Singapore, gave you 100 of their dollars, said, okay, do life. Good luck. Now, I don't know about you. I'm a realist. If you drop me off in Singapore with 100 of their dollars, once I get me a place to stay and something to eat, I'm probably going to be taken advantage of because I don't know nothing. I'm going to be broke. Somebody getting hit upside the head because I'm going to survive.
Yeah.
Saved, unsaved, Christian, whatever. I might have been preaching, whatever, but I got to eat. I got to live. And so if I don't get support, then I'm going to revert back to what's easy, comfortable, and what helps me to survive, which all that's going to do is inevitably send me back to the penitentiary.
So, Pastor, let me ask you, because you're laying out a case here that many who are watching, including myself, even hearing it, I see this as a bottomless pit. So where is the bridge? Where is the connect? We have those who break the law and do things against the law and against people that require or bring punishment and or consequences. But clearly what you're saying is that the prison system, from jail to county all the way to the actual penitentiary itself, is not a rehabilitation center. So when those people go there, they're not being sent there for the purposes of being rehabilitated for the crimes in which they've committed, but they are placed into a system that is working very, very, very well. So where is the bridge? Is this monster so big that it cannot be reformed? Because again, the thing that's on the landscape right now is reform this, reform this, reform this, reform that. And one of the great reforms is what people got their eyes on is the prison system. But can it be reformed? Is this system so big, and Texas included, and United States included, and all of that, but is it so big that it can even remotely be reformed?
Yeah. So here's the thing. The vast majority of crime is committed by people without a high school diploma or GED. Vast majority. I mean, there's always those that are out. So I think the last numbers I looked at, it was about 73% to 74% of all crimes is committed by a person without a high school equivalency. Watch this. But now 74% of people with at least a degree, which that associate's degree, have no dealings with the criminal justice system. So just education alone flips that completely, right? So, but watch this. Education cannot be forced. That's the problem that they had prior to going to the penitentiary. All of us have the same opportunities out here. And that's the biggest frustration in the African-American churches, because most of us come from the hoods that those guys came from, and most of us chose a different choice than they choose. So when they get ready to need help, we say, man, he get what he deserved, because I'm from that same hood and I didn't decide to rob. I didn't decide to sell drugs. I didn't decide to do that. So you on your own, you got what you deserve, man. Whatsoever a man sow, that's what he also reap. I mean, I can spit that out to you. So in our culture, that's how we feel. And so the reality of it is you can't force a person to do what's best for them. You have to educate a person in the benefits of them doing what's best for them. And you have to do that in love. And so the reason why the volunteer are so sought after in the criminal justice system is because you have a person that does not have any dog in this hunt, coming in of their own time and volunteering. And because that person is coming in and volunteering, I know that they care about me probably more than the ones that say that they're my family. Because the ones that say they're my family didn't steer me right. And it might just because they didn't know what right was. That's what they did. But they didn't steer me right. They didn't care. I'm in a penitentiary now, and I don't hear from nobody calling me because I made that mistake, because I decided that's what I was going to do in life. You know, your girlfriend was with you, and she's saying, man, quit doing this. We can make it. And you still doing what you want to do because you're a knucklehead. You go to the penitentiary, she through with you, man. I told you to stop. I'm going on with life. So you feel abandoned, and here are these volunteers coming in. So to answer your question, can this system, can you be reformed? Yes, but you have to do it from a position of education. So you have to have enough programming out there and educate them on the benefits of that program, so that they take advantage of it, so that they can better themselves. If you try to force them to go to school, if you try to force them to take a trade, they're not going to put their heart in it, and therefore they're not going to benefit from it. And so if they don't benefit from it, then what good was it? All you're doing, because here's the thing. In the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, there are some great programs.
Yeah.
Man, they've got a furniture store. They got mechanic classes where they bring master mechanics in to teach you how to be a mechanic. They raise cattle. They raise chickens. They raise pigs. They have a water treatment system. I mean, you name it industry-wise. There's a cannery plant. I worked at a unit with a cannery plant where they're canning. When you buy something that says Livy on my label, that happened at a cannery plant. There's a cannery plant, so they're getting all those skills. But here's the thing. I've got all those skills, but if no one gives me a shot when I get out because of my felony, what good is all those skills? And then I'm angry because I'm there, and if you treat me less than a human, all I want to do is be a monster. If you come to any of the facilities that I operate at Crosswalk Center, one thing I have is I will not put a man in a place that I wouldn't live, period. I live good, so all the guys in our facility live good. Why? Because I believe that if you value a person, the vast majority of people will rise to that value. Mm-hmm. But if you don't value me, if you put me somewhere and house me like an animal and treat me like an animal, what am I going to do? I'm going to act like an animal. And then you wonder why the recidivism is so high is because we treat them like we're punishing them, not like we're trying to help you find out what it is that you need to do to enter society properly. So yes, I guess that's a long answer for.
No, but I think we need to dive down deeper because you're an educator, I'm an educator. I strongly believe with every fiber of my being that education is the ticket that gets you out of wherever you may be in life. Mm-hmm. That's not a pie in the sky. Mm-hmm. I genuinely, from the depths of my being, believe that the more that you educate yourself, and I'm not even talking about going to college, Pastor Anderson, I'm just talking about educating yourself. Mm-hmm. And we're living right now in a time to where education is so readily available, literally at your fingertips. And so when we're talking about educating the person in order to rise out of whatever economic condition you may be in, family condition that you may be in, one of the tools that God himself has given us is the opportunity to learn. In all thy getting, get understanding. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways that we're able to level the playing field is by education. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to just specifically pinpoint a ethnic group, but when you're looking at the prison system, it is vastly overpopulated by African Americans.
Minorities.
And minorities. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you just said is that those who commit those crimes have less than a high school or equivalent. Mm-hmm. It is very, very difficult to have conversations like this when we're talking about addressing the problem. And here's just give me a second here, because this is something that is not only frustrating to me, because I believe we talk to no end with no solutions involved. But when we're talking about all of the issues of our day, one of the things that we do not put on the table is the personal accountability. Mm-hmm. Okay, the personal accountability. The personal accountability of each person to make his or her own decision in whatever moment of life that you may be in. And whatever that decision is based off of, there are consequences, good, bad, and indifferent, that come along with the choice that we all make in life. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that we need to surround people with these kind of examples that can help them to aim higher. Mm-hmm. Now, when I'm looking at the prison system, and again, this is personal to me because I don't mind saying this, man. I got many people in my family that have unfortunately been in the, Texas Department of Justice. Okay, it is what it is.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking, it's that barrier. It's that, you know what, you can do better. Mm-hmm. But life, inside and out, have reinforced an idea that what I'm doing right now works for me at the moment, and I'm going to continue to do it thereof. Mm-hmm. So how do you get this person that has been trained to think a certain way? and try to revert that thinking, because obviously that system of thinking is not working. Look at where it's gotten you. But you've been doing it for so long. How do you get that person to revert to something different? Because we're not having the conversations, at least in my mind, Pastor Anderson. We talk about the problems with the prison system. We talk about the problems with all the stuff that we have. But we don't talk about the grassroots solutions of how we can come together and build the bridges. One of the reasons why I have you on this podcast today is because you are doing work to address the problem. You're not talking in generalities. You're not just adding fuel to the fire. You actually have programs in place, specific programs in place to address the problem at hand. So how do we do this on a big scale? Or is it even possible to do it on a big scale when you're talking about prison reform and those who have been institutionalized?
So we're two preachers. And so us being two preachers, understand that there is no problem that we will encounter that the Bible does not have an answer for.
Amen.
That's just truth, including this problem. The Bible has an answer for it, but here's the question. Are we as men and women of God willing to do what God says do when it comes to this issue? Tucked between Titus and Hebrew in the Bible is a little book
Go ahead, man.
called Philemon.
Yeah.
One chapter. Or
the Baptists say Philemon.
And Philemon. So, right? One chapter. And in that one chapter is a playbook on reform. And so I'll just take you through just quickly. The first thing Paul says as he is writing this book is he's writing to another man, Philemon, and saying that, hey, I've got one of your runaway slaves that I met while I was in prison, and he became my son in the faith. Watch this. Stop right there. Because to say that he became my son is a step beyond conversion.
Yeah.
So Paul is saying, while he was here with me, I discipled him. Okay, so and the problem with church program right now is we got everybody in the world want to go into the prisons so they can fulfill Matthew 7. When I was in prison, did you? So they want to go in and they want to do conversions and they want to get the number of their conversions, but they're not doing no discipleship. And because you're not doing no discipleship, I'm not changed when I get out because I'm in an incubator. So then we say, when they go back to doing crime, or that was just prison, that was just jail salvation. But here's the thing: Paul says that he became my son in the faith. So he says, I have discipled him. But he says something powerful. He says, now when he left you, he wasn't no use to nobody. Come on here, somebody. When he got incarcerated, he wasn't no use for society. He wasn't no use for his family. He was a menace to society. That's why he was incarcerated. So when he left you, he was no use to anybody. But now, because of discipleship, not only is he of use to himself, but he's of great use to me, so much so that I really don't want to send him back. But he'll be great use to you. But watch this, I gotta send him back because he has to take responsibility. That's what you and I talked about, this whole responsibility thing. At some point, you've got to take responsibility for the decisions that you make. So Paul says in his discipleship that Onesimus, you need to go back to your master and take responsibility for running off. You need to go face that.
Well, my goodness.
Okay?
My goodness.
But what Onesimus doesn't know, that as he's going back to his master, he's armed with a letter from Paul that's telling the master, don't treat him like a master. Don't treat him like the conditions that he just came out of. Don't treat him like an inmate. Don't treat him like somebody less in worth anything. I want you to treat him like a brother. Why? Because if you want to talk about rehabilitation, then the Bible is the answer. Because he says that if any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Watch this. Old things are passed away. behold, all things become new. So if he was no good before, because of his encounter, his epiphany with Christ, now he's something brand new if he's been discipled. And so Paul says that he's some use. So I'm going to send you back now. Watch this. But he needs some things when I send him back to you. He needs support. He needs to be accepted into the family of faith as an equal, as a brother, not as a less than. And that's the problem that we make in the church a lot, is even when guys that have come from incarceration come into our church, we treat them less than. Not on purpose. We love Christ, we love people, but because we don't know how to deal with them and because we don't know what they really need, we placate to them. We treat them less than. And watch this. Most of the guys that I have ran into that's trying to change in the penitentiary probably knows the Bible better than you ever will. Mm-hmm. They know it from Genesis to the maps. They can quote it up and down in their sleep. But if no one gives them the opportunity to do anything, watch this. I'm in the church. I was a leader in the church in the penitentiary. I was an elder in the church in the penitentiary. I preached in the church in the penitentiary. I discipled in the church on my dorm in the penitentiary. I've led hundreds of men to Christ in the penitentiary. I get out, and you treat me like I'm a novice, like I'm brand new to the faith, like I'm nobody. So you isolate me. You make me feel like I'm nobody. But Paul says, no, you have to welcome them into community. And while you welcome in the community, Paul says, if he makes a mistake, if he accumulates some debt, then charge it to my account. And I promise you that when I get there, if he owe you, I pay. What does that mean, Pastor? That means that some of us have to realize that it's going to cost us something to re-enter somebody into society. And we've got to be willing to pay that cost. Now, if we're not willing to pay that cost, then this is just a problem that's gonna continue to go. Watch it. There's 5,000 churches in Houston alone. 5,000. That's the churches that have that are legal. You know how many storefronts in your house?
Yeah, garages. Yeah. Everybody got a call.
Everybody, come on now.
Everybody got a call.
So there's 5,000 churches in Houston. Watch this. If every church said, I'm going to adopt one returning citizen on the way out, that's at least 5,000 of the 13 to 16,000 that's coming back every year that's got support.
So let me ask you this. When you talk about prison ministry.
Yes, sir.
I've been in, you've been in ministry quite a while. I've been in ministry quite a while. You've been in longer than I have. So I've been in now going on 21 years. I've pastored a church, senior pastor of the church, and now I'm the executive of the Church of Bethel's Family to under our pastor, Walt Target. So we know about prison ministry, but prison ministry is not a sexy ministry in the church.
It's not.
It's not a sexy ministry. The line is not wrapped around the corner of those who want to participate in prison ministry. I just did a conference with a smaller church last week, and man, this powerful statement, some of the greatest truths are wrapped up in the smallest words. Mm-hmm. This young man came up to me and said, Pastor, oh man, thank you for all that you did. He said, man, we love the Lord, we just don't know what we're doing. And that statement encapsulates a lot of churches.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said, man, we love the Lord, leadership, born again, but we have no idea what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
You know, in establishing ministry and putting structures and systems in place so that ministry can grow, training people.
Yes, sir.
They love the Lord,
mm-hmm.
but have no idea what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a moniker for a lot of churches. Man, they love the Lord. No doubt that they're on their way to heaven. No doubt that Jesus Christ is their Lord and Savior. And I believe, Pastor, that I think that there's a lot of pastors that see the need, but they just don't know what they're doing.
Yes, sir.
And so when I went to Haiti back in 2015, I visited the Haitian prison right there in Port-au-Prince. I still, even when I think about it, even when I was getting prepared for this podcast, I thought about it. And they would only let you go into the open quarters. They wouldn't let you go into the place where the actual inmates were going because it was too dangerous.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it was literally like, I don't know, 16, 18, 20 people in like a small cell. They're literally cramped in there like
Yes,
that.
sir.
The smell, the stench was deafening.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to give the gospel in all of this. Right? They're trying to give hope when I'm in a cell and this is all the space that I got. When there's literally a pile of human feces right next to me, they're trying to give the gospel presentation in that environment. And it bewildered me because it seems like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. It seems as, I'm telling you about Jesus and Jesus can make it better, but I still smell this feces on the ground. And so when I'm talking about churches who want to get involved in prison ministry, if you have 5,000 churches that say, hey, we're just going to adopt that one guy. Pastor, I'm going to say this and I'm going to say it again. We need education. We need to be able to get this platform so that people understand how to do it. On our talk, man, I said, man, love alone is not enough. You love them. You want to see the best for them, but you don't understand why he's up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
I have no clue.
You don't I don't understand that. You should be asleep.
Yes,
Why are you up at 3 o'clock in the morning clanking pans around? I don't understand that. And
Yes,
it
sir.
frustrates me.
Yes, sir.
And so there's a short circuit in my compassion because I don't understand. So these churches that are doing prison ministry, and many of them have a hard pastor, but they don't have the education to really do it at an effective level. So how do we do prison ministry in the church, not just from a Matthew 25, I was sick and you visited me, I was in prison and you came to see about me and all that other good stuff. How do we take that scripture off of Matthew 25 and make it practical in the houses of God?
Okay, if you're a pastor in a church, and in your pastor and in the church there is a onslaught of death in that church, you as the pastor of that church know that you've got a lot of people grieving in your church. And you know that the capacity to help those people is not within your wheelhouse by yourself. And so as a good senior pastor, you're going to go seek out an expert in the field of helping a person. This is my pump going off. Excuse me 1 second. Helping a person transition or deal with the trauma that's going on in their life. You're going to go and seek out an expert in that field, and an expert in that field that probably hold your same belief system. And you're going to bring that person that's an expert in that field that holds your own belief system into the congregation to educate the congregation on this grief, how to deal with grief, right? So why is it that for medical issues, for hunger issues, for whatever the issue is, we go get experts to come in and teach us how to do it at a high level. But when it comes to this, we don't go seek out the experts to come and teach us how to do it. So what ends up happening is then you take people, and it's a misuse of resources. God put so many resources in your hands, and we're supposed to steward those. And so here I am. I happen to be a fluent church with great resources. We're going to do prison ministry, and so I empower people that have no clue of what they're doing, and they waste major resources. And then here's this little ministry that really knows what they're doing. They're an expert at what they're doing. But they can't continue to do what they're doing because they can't find funding to do it. And so we have to, as the body of Christ, we have to, just like we do in other crises, we need to see this as a crisis. We're talking about 16,000 just in this area. We're talking about 2.8 million men, women, and children in the United States alone. This is a pandemic. we need to seek out from the church, seek out the experts in these fields and have them come to our churches. And while we're doing men's breakfasts, we need to have a man there talking about prison ministry. While we're doing seminars on parking lot ministry and on how to do the best seeker services, while we're trying to do all that, we need to have somebody that's an expert in that field come in and train us and teach us on how to do effective ministry. Let me give you the case in point. And I'll give you the case in point that led to the award I just got, the Governor's Award for the institution. That's in-prison work. When I came here at the Church of Bethel's Family, over a series of things, I became a director of prison ministry here. So my mentality of prison ministry is that we're going to adopt a prison. We're going to go into one prison first, and everything that we can do in that prison, we're going to do, not just for the offender, but also for the officer. Mm-hmm. So here at the Church of Bethel's Family, we adopted a unit. If the warden needing something, if they need to be fed, we fed the officers. Mm-hmm. If they needed a marriage seminars, we did it. If we offered marriage seminars at our church, I also offered that to the officers and their wives, that they could come and take that. Whatever we do in our church, we made them a part of that. And so what ends up happening is we became experts at doing prison ministry at one unit. And when that one unit chaplain and warden saw that, the other unit say, hey, how can we get some of that y'all got at this unit? So then other units start calling us and saying, hey, can y'all come do this? The other units start calling and say, hey, can you come do that here? And so the idea is that we need to concentrate. And if you're a small church, we happen to be a large church, if you're a small church, find 2 or 3 other small churches that you can partner with. Call for the expert to train you, and then be able to do ministry together. But we have to begin to deal with this pandemic. And watch this, it has to start with us, because God has given us the mandate. As men and women of God, God has given us the mandate to go into the highways and the byways and compel men and women to come in, that his house may be filled. And I think that the penitentiary system right now is the modern day leper's camp. Mm-hmm. You know, and the problem is when they get out, they're forced to scream unclean, unclean, because we don't know how to put hands on them.
Can I ask you something? Can I ask you something? Because knowing what I know, I can, I hate to call it a mantra, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yes, sir.
You just simply don't know what you don't know. Most ministries, prison ministry, consist of sending a preacher in, preaching about 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and they have fulfilled their call to prison ministry. And so I don't want to blanket all churches, but I can comfortably say that a lot of churches that are doing prison ministry are doing prison ministry from that aspect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they're preaching, and you got a plethora of preachers, especially your young associates that are yearning for a time to preach because they want to get up before the big crowd.
Yes, sir.
The senior pastor go send them to the prison to go preach over there. Okay, so most churches are operating in that space. The problem, and you can testify to this, is that there is a plethora of Jesus in the prisons.
Yes, sir.
Like these brothers know.
Yes, sir.
They know the word. So there's a lot of preaching in the prison. So when you're just sending preachers in to do these little spot sermons here and there, we're really not addressing the need that will help them to convert or to reintegrate into society. We're simply, and I hate to use this, I hate to say it like this, but we are simply patting ourselves on the back for a job well done, right? But when you're looking at what's going on in the prisons, let me just speak from my own experience. When I got caught stealing at 13 years old, I got put in the back of a police car. I got taken down to Derry Ashford. And Pastor Anderson, when I heard that door close, as God is my witness, when I heard that door close, it did something to me. I still hear it. that door closing, and I was only there for an hour because my mom came and got me out. Shout out to my mom. But when I heard that door close, that is the only time I've ever had to do with anything remotely in the prison system. I've never been back. Ain't even been close to being back.
Yes, sir.
Because that sound, when we go into the prison ministries now, when we do financial courses and the such, when you walk in, you got to sign your name, and then clank, that sound. It is a intimidating place to send preachers in. And so when I say the prison ministry is not very sexy, it's not very sexy from that degree. So here's my suggestion, and I want you to look right here in the camp. I think that Crosswalk is doing a phenomenal job. Man, the conversation that we just had a couple days ago has enlightened me immensely. And you just don't know what you don't know, Pastor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So to that person, maybe a pastor, maybe a ministry leader, whoever's looking at right now, how can you come alongside of that average person who there is a need?
Yes, sir.
13, 16,000 people are coming out. There is absolutely a need for prison ministry. But how would you walk alongside of that person who wants to do it better? How would you walk alongside at Crosswalk with the programs, specific programs that you guys got in place to help people reintegrate back into society? What does that look like?
Just connect with the experts. Just connect with the experts. Hey, there's no reason for you to have to reinvent the wheel. No reason for you to reinvent the wheel. Just connect with us and or with the experts in that field. You can contact us at 2103 North Main Street. That's where our headquarters is. You can call me. I happen to be a member of a church with a pastor that don't have a problem with giving his cell phone number. So I'm a minister that don't have a problem with giving my cell phone number. My phone number, personal, 832-651-6035. If you're a pastor or a ministry leader and you want to get in this field and you don't know what to do, give me a call. I will sit down and walk with you from beginning to end, just on the outside. We at Crosswalk are looking right now for what we call adopting churches to adopt our facilities. And so if there's a church that wants to get into prison ministry, instead of us finding a house and then trying to find a church that's willing to minister to us, we want to find a church that wants to do this ministry, and then we'll find a house in that community so that you can minister to them. So once again, personal cell phone number, 832-651-6035.
I'm going to personally, let me tell you, it was Eisenhower that said that I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just got to know what button to push, right? And when you adopt that as your life form,
yes, sir.
Okay, there are certain people that, listen, you surround yourself with people that are skilled in certain areas, you won't lack anything.
Yes, sir.
You won't lack anything. You just got to know what button to push. And everybody, this is the button that you need to push. Pastor Charles Anderson over at Crosswalk Center, this is the button to push when you're talking about prison ministry. This is a big beast. I really just want a couple of seconds, man, because I know we talked about it that in the beginning. I know we're approaching the time. But we talked about that there is a shift going on right now in the prison ministry, that women are entering into prisons at an alarming rate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And with all the stuff that's going on in the news right now,
yes, sir,
women are increasingly becoming more violent. And so I want you to talk about a little bit about, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to make sure we get this in there, that you're seeing this shift going on with more women entering into the prison system. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, we had a fundraiser, and the speaker at our fundraiser came in. He is on the task force, the committee in the Texas Senate that deals with a prison or oversight. And he said to us that the fastest growing number of incarceration in Texas is women.
Wow.
As it's beginning to come down for men, it's starting to go up for women. And so at an alarming rate that women are now beginning to be incarcerated. And so things that women just wouldn't do, now women are doing. And we really, as the body of Christ, now in the midst of all that we're doing, we really need to step up and be a part of what God's getting ready to do. Because I personally believe that the next great revival is going to come from the penitentiary. Now, we have the best opportunity in the world has ever seen right now because of COVID. Every prison program that was out there before is gone. Every chaplain at every unit has a clean slate. And they're trying to figure out, what can I do to bring in programming to my unit that's going to be helpful to the men and women that are going to be in my influence. And so right now is the time that you ought to get with somebody, have them come in, train you, and there is wide open opportunity for you to get in there and begin to be the hands and feet of Christ that will help when they come out, the next generation of men and women that we're going to deal with coming out of the penitentiary. So,
Pastor Charles Anderson, to all of those who are watching, listen, you got somebody in your family, maybe extended family, maybe even beyond, where you've had to deal with this issue. And, the reentry process of somebody that has been incarcerated and now has to reintegrate back into society. And you can attest to some of the frustrations, some of the, why in the world would you do kind of thoughts. Understanding the issues, I believe, is number one in trying to solve them, which is why we keep running around the barn in all of the issues that we face, because first of all, we just don't understand them.
Yes, sir.
And we're not bringing forth, and again, I sound like a broken record, but I just believe this is a biblical principle. You have to address the specific issues about the problem and address those. Yes, and not in the large generalities that is clickbait in news media and headlines, but let's talk about these specific issues. We don't, the best way to eat an elephant, as the old African proverb said, is one bite at a time. So let's take these specific issues, wrap some programs and policies around them, and then begin to take this beast down bit by bit. Yes, and brother, you doing this thing, man, and you're doing it in a big way over at Crosswalk Center, man. I have been personally engaged with what you've done at the Terror Unit. Brother, you are doing some great things, and God definitely has his hand on you. When somebody's walking in their calling, missions is mine. When people are walking in their calling, they can articulate it, they're passionate about it, they know the ins and outs about it. And so, brother, I want to commend you for what you're doing at Crosswalk. Congratulations again on the Governor's Award. It was well-deserved. And I just want to put a stamp of approval on there. Not that you need Pastor Holman's stamp of approval, but let me just tell you, I don't put, the Bible says, don't be too quick to lay your hands on somebody. Let me tell you, this brother is doing the work. So if you know anybody in your family that's coming out, that has been out, they're going through that revolving door, going back in and out, man, there's certain things that we all need to know that would benefit not just us, but our loved ones, our friends, our families that are trying to get their feet back established. Yes, so, brother, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for coming on here on the set of Studio B. This information has been absolutely valuable, but I want you to do one last time, look into that camera. I know they can push rewind, but I want you to give that impassionate plea one last time about what you're doing at Crosswalk Center for anybody may be watching.
Yes, so if we're at Crosswalk Center is just trying to help men and women reintegrate into society. Our address is 2103 North Main Street. My personal cell phone number is 832-651-6035. Starting next month, I am starting a radio show on 100.7 The Word that's called The Odysseus Show that is going to deal with reentry topics every week. It'll be on Thursdays from 5:30 to 6 o'clock p.m. anything I can do, give me a call. I'll help you if you're trying to navigate these waters. Pastor Holman, I thank you so much for inviting me, and anytime you need me, you know I'm at your disposal. I'll come, because there's just so many nuances of this that we could have talked about that could have been an hour in themselves. And so hey, anytime.
Everybody, thank you so very much for joining us here on the Status Studio B, man. We greatly appreciate your viewership and your followership. Remember, everybody, we're quickly approaching 5,000 subscribers. We're trying to get to 10 by the end of the summer. We need you to like, follow, subscribe, comment, share this. Go to wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure that you download Studio B on that podcast platform. Listen, we talk about the issues that are applicable to Main Street people, and then we apply them to a biblical standard to help you navigate this life and navigate this life effectively. I believe John chapter number 10, when Jesus says, I've come to give you life and give you life more abundantly. But you can't walk through life by yourself. You need good people around you to fill the spaces that you're not familiar with. Please hear my heart. Surround yourself with people that know what you don't know, and you'll never lack anything. If you're the smartest person in the room, smartest person of all your friends, find some new friends. Pastor Charles Anderson, Crosswalk Center, and I'm just going to put a little snip in there. We're working on something. Y'all pray. He's also the dean of the Urban Institute. Say that.
The Urban Ministry Institute.
The Urban Ministry Institute. Y'all just throw a prayer out there for Toomey and some of the things that we're talking about right now by bringing some real important biblical classes to those who need to be grounded in the Word. But man, again, thank you, brother. God bless you. I pronounce blessings upon you and your marriage, your family, your ministry. God's got some great stuff in store for you. And man, I believe that I believe this is going to bear some great fruit, brother. So as Pastor August always says, the best is yet to come.
Yes.
God bless you and your wife, man. God bless just surroundings on you and your family, brother. Thank you so very much. And everybody out there, man, thank you for joining us. Remember, God loves you. Remember, God has a plan for you. Remember, no matter what you're going through, God is with you every step of the way. We love you, and we'll see you next week. All right, everybody, welcome to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you so very much for tuning in with us every single week. And remember, no matter where you're watching us from, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe so that you don't miss anything going on the set of Studio B. And also remember, wherever you access your podcast from, that's Apple Music, that's Spotify, that's Pandora, wherever you get your podcast from, you can access Studio B from that same platform. We have now just passed over 5,000 plus subscribers. Remember, we're trying to get to 10,000 by the middle of the summer, and I know we can do that with your help. So please continue to support us and to continue to tune in to what we're doing here on the set. Today, man, I have a very special guest, and this month is going to be exciting. I am excited about what God has in store for us on these next 4 weeks on the podcast, because I'm going to highlight 4 phenomenal women that are making an impact in this world. And they are doing big things at a high level. They are God-fearing women. They are family women. They are business women. And they have their affairs in order. So I'm just so excited about my first guest today. Not only because she's my first guest in opening up this series, but she is a member of the Church of Bethel's family. We love her and her family. And so I want to introduce to some and present to others Miss Latasha Norwood. MBA, PMP, Project Manager Professional. Okay. Managing partner of, now give me that.
The funny thing is people try to make it so fancy.
Okay.
It's El Renee.
El Renee. Okay. I was getting ready to combine them.
Oh, I know. It happens all the time.
Managing partner of El Renee and Associates, LLC. And you are, as I was looking at your story and doing some research on you before our podcast, I'm excited about today because you got a story.
I do.
And I want the viewers and the listeners here to hear this story. So let me just kind of set the framework of what we're doing. So for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be doing, I don't want to call it a series. You know, I'm a pastor, so, you know, we like to operate in series, but it's not a series, even though it's a series. But it's called Normalizing Success. And over the past year and a half, we're now on 50 episodes. I have stood right here, sat right here at this table, Latasha, and I have advocated on behalf of Black America that Black America is a powerful force. And if you look at our history going all the way back to 1619 when we were brought over here to these United States, we have overcome obstacles upon obstacles, barriers upon barriers. And not only have we overcome them, but we have thrived. As much as we've had to fight against and fight for, we have thrived in so many areas of life. And so this idea about normalizing success is, like, I don't think that we should throw parades when we see Black people succeeding. I just think that success is a part of the Black experience. We are highly successful in many different fields of life and many different areas of life. So when you see somebody that's successful and they happen to be an African American, I don't believe that should be a great cause to sit there and high five everybody in the room. Standard is our norm. It's not what we strive for. It's just what we do. And so this particular, for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be highlighting women, especially African-American women, who are doing great things in the business field, in their families and educational fields, so that I want everybody to understand the power that is in the Black community. And so that's what this first one is going to be about, and you are the perfect guest to start us off. So I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company and just about you.
Sure. So Latasha Norwood, born and raised here in Houston, Sunnyside, Texas.
Sunnyside.
Absolutely. Migrated like most from Sunnyside to South Park and then to Hiram Clark. So I graduated from Madison High School.
Oh, my goodness. Maryland.
Absolutely. Madison, Maryland. Then went on for a stint to Lee College. And I want to put a caveat there. I was the first in my generation to get a full scholarship to go to play volleyball in college.
Wow.
And getting there, I really didn't know what to expect. So I didn't understand what a syllabus was and how to prepare yourself and how to be accountable and then managing being a student athlete. And so I went off, had a lot of scholarships. I wanted to stay close to home. So I went to Lee College and I got there, was playing volleyball and doing my work and turning in assignments and traveling across the country. And then it came time for midterms and I ended up getting a call from my coach and she said, you failed a lot of your classes. And I'm like, how is that possible? I'm going to class every day. I don't understand what happened. Well, what I didn't understand was that the syllabus is the guide that kind of guides you through the curriculum in the class. And sometimes the professors don't say, hey, this assignment is due. So I was missing assignments that I didn't even know exist. So long story short, I lost my scholarship and within 3 weeks had to figure it out. So I was blessed to have a classmate that was at Prairie View A&M that was willing to allow me to secretly sleep on her bed in an extra bed in her room in her dorm. While I enrolled, I had to get money very quickly to enroll in college, and I lost my scholarship, so we had to, bootstrap it. And I remember that entire semester, I started with like maybe a 1.7 GPA going into Prairie View, and I talked to the volleyball coach, and she willingly allowed me to come in and to walk onto the team, but I couldn't even qualify for financial aid. So my entire second year of my freshman year, I was, I guess, homeless, where I was sleeping on a bed, all my bags packed, never could unpack it. But I think it was a pivotal moment for me because it taught me the importance of responsibility and being accountable and being aware of what's going on. And so I think I finished that second semester with a 4.0, and then I ended up transitioning and having a great career in volleyball at Prairie View A&M. We won the SWAC. We ended up going to Hawaii to compete against the #1 team. I was interviewed on ESPN and Hawaii News, and it was amazing. And so I left Prairie View, and I ended up going into education. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do at that point. And my mom said, well, you love sports and you love coaching, so why not teach? Why not be a physical education instructor? So I said, oh, okay, that's fine. So I ended up substituting for Windsor Village Elementary, and I went on to be one of the top instructors there. I started teaching teachers how to teach, writing curriculum, writing standardized exams, and did really, really well in education. And I ended up moving to Omaha, Nebraska, and I worked there for a little bit, and I realized, I have some gifts and talents that I'm not using. And I really feel like there's more for me, but I didn't know at that point what more looked like. So I started talking to a mentor, and he recommended TV advertising. And so I said, well, I don't even know what this career looks like. And he said, I think you'd be perfect for it. So I ended up interviewing it. At the time, I was the head coach of a volleyball program there in Omaha and had done a lot. And I remember going in and interviewing for this job. And I'm tearing up because I'm thinking through the blessings that God has just given me and how this path has been paved for me. And I ended up interviewing for this job, and it was with the president of the station. So imagine the highest person in the company's interviewing you. And he says, I'm looking at your resume, and I'm seeing all these things that you've done, and I don't see how you even qualify for this position. And I looked boldly in his eyes, and I said, I'm more qualified than anyone you have on your staff. And he says, really? And I did not know going in that I had tested higher than any person had ever tested in the history of that company on the battery of exams before they even bring you in for the interview. So he offered me the job. And I looked at it and I said, no. And he said, what do you mean? I looked at this number and I said, I can make more than this doing what I'm doing. Why would I leave my job to do this? And he said, I want you to think about it. And I said, I already did. The answer is no. And he said, well, what if we come to this number? And I said, that doesn't work either. Now, in my career, you've heard what my career looks like. I've never negotiated salary. It was just always something that was just, this is what it is. Okay, you agree, you move on. So I left. And he called my mentor and said, I want her, convince her to take this job. Wow. And he said, I promise you that if you take this job, that you'll double your salary every year. And in Omaha, Nebraska, there weren't a lot of people that looked like you and me. And there weren't any people in that department that looked like me. And I said, you know what? I'm willing to take a shot at this. So they met me at a number that I was comfortable with, and I left. And I transitioned into that career not knowing anything. I was so green. I was as green as the wall behind you. So green, just didn't know. And I'm so grateful that I took the leap, because I was willing to bet on myself and to walk my faith and to know that I was going into the unknown and that ultimately God was in control. It helped me to get to my destiny of where I am right now. So when I ended up leaving that station, I came back home to Houston to work for Channel 11 for 7 years. Wow. And again, negotiated my salary, which again, we don't negotiate salaries, unfortunately. Women, and I've understood that minorities don't do a really good job of negotiating. Absolutely. Because we don't really have a marker or something that we can measure ourselves, a baseline to measure ourselves against, or even honoring and acknowledging our gifts and the experience that we bring. Even the boldness to say, I'm more qualified than anyone that you have. And I was, but I was willing to say it and to be confident in it. And so worked at Channel 11 for 7 years, reached that same, block in the road and said, I want more. I don't know what more looks like, but I know that I want more. So I started my company while still working full time at Channel 11. And I just started moonlighting, taking on any client that I could from every industry, from construction to entertainment to, anything I could touch. And then I made a decision that an opportunity was interesting enough that I was willing to take it. And so I did. I left Channel 11 and I worked for another company, and I hated it. It was terrible. But it was a 6-figure salary that I wasn't willing to walk away from. So I decided I'm just going to stick it out and still work my business until it's time. Well, God said the time came sooner than what my time said. So one day I was working, newly married. My husband he was on his way to pick me up to take me to lunch. And I see this meeting pop up on my calendar that I didn't schedule. And at that time, I'd been working on projects and working with the largest companies that company worked with and doing amazing things, and had righted so many wrongs and just helped to really, bring some crazy projects back into alignment. And my manager brought me in, and there was another lady that was sitting in there. And I'm thinking, okay, hi, what's this meeting about? And not knowing that I was getting laid off after being there for about a year. And I remember just sitting there just shocked because I'd never been in that position before. And then the HR director said, well, you can reapply for your job on Monday. This is a mass layoff that we're doing, workforce reduction. I don't remember everything that she said. All I heard was you're fired.
Yeah.
So I said, do you mean I'm fired? And she said, no, this happens with the company. You can reapply. So I remember walking out of the building with my box, and my husband's sitting outside waiting for me. And he said, whoa, what are you doing? I know you're not happy, but, are you quitting? And I said, no, I got fired. And he said, well, are you okay? And I said, I'm fine. And I think he thought I was having a nervous breakdown. He said, are you sure? And I said, yes. He said, do you still want to go to lunch? I said, listen, I've got to handle some stuff in there. You go ahead and go back to work. I'll handle this, and I'll see you at home. So I get home. He calls me. He says, are you okay? And I said, yes. He said, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm on the internet. I'm looking for another job. And he said, why? And I said, well, we just bought a house. We just got married. We can't afford for me not to work. I'll have another job by Monday. And what he said to me was a pivotal point in my life and in my career. He said, close the computer. I don't think that's what God wants you to do. And I said, he didn't tell me that. And he said, God's got us and I've got us. Just take a minute. Just take a moment. Just stop.
And breathe, huh?
And breathe. He said, every time you feel like you want to look for a job, pick up your Bible and find a scripture and have Bible study and meditate on that. And it didn't dawn on me what God was doing and how he was using him to get to me so that he could show me what he already had for me. And that lasted for a little bit. And I said, listen, I need to find a job. This is not working. So I ended up interviewing for a company that was a really prominent company here in Houston. And they brought all their C-level executives in. They brought the person they wanted me to report to. They were going to create a position for me. And this was after a series of interviews. And I said, honey, this is a great company. It's not really what I feel like I want to do, but it's my foot in the door. So I go back, and she's bringing all these binders in. She's showing me all these things that she wants me to do. And I looked at her and I said, listen, I have so much respect for you and your company, but I have to be honest. I would be bored out of my mind doing this. And I don't want to do this. I feel like you deserve to have someone who's going to be here and give you the longevity in the company that it deserves. And she said, nobody's ever said anything like that to me before. But if I can ever be a reference for you, if we can ever do anything or work with you, let us know. So I remember getting in my car and driving on my freeway. And I said, God, I'm hiring myself. I'm not going to try to prove to anybody else who I am or what I'm worth. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to hire myself. And from that moment on, God has blessed me beyond to work with some of the largest and the oldest and the biggest and the craziest opportunities that I couldn't even write for myself. That's just how good God is. But it took all of those things. It took those stories. It took that path in order for me to receive and to continue to work really hard to know that God has something bigger and greater for me.
Now, Latasha, let me tell you that when you look at the journey, I think a lot of people are so focused on the destination that they forget the power of the journey, right? Mm-hmm. And the learning, the skill set, the building, the encouragement is not in the destination. It's in what it took to get you there. And there's a lot of meat on that bone that you just explained there. A lot of things in which we see when we talk about value, when they put that number in front of you and you said no to that number. And I think when you say that we don't negotiate, and I think it's not just from a necessary point of people just don't negotiate. They just don't know their value. Mm-hmm. So when you go to a job places a value on you and your time. Mm-hmm. And so they'll say you're worth $15 an hour. We believe that your time in this company, in this particular skill set, is worth X. well, when you don't know your value, you take anything that is given to you. And so that kind of that'll lend us to a place to where, when you're looking at how you got to where you are and all the ebbs and flows that it took to get there, when you're seeing that where God, and we're gonna make sure that we hone in on God, right? Because we can talk about the success, but had it not been for the hand of God over your life, none of this stuff would be possible. But tell me about the earliest visions of your life. Like, what did you see yourself doing? Did you always envision success? And did you come from a successful family? Were you surrounded by success? Was this just part of your everyday life? Like, what did that early childhood look like?
So I will tell you this, and I say this often. I feel like I've been able to take the equity from everything that I've done, and I've rolled it into L. Renee and Associates. And I'll give you an example. When we purchase a home, the idea is that we're going to purchase it, we're going to take the equity out, we're going to roll it, and then we're going to continue to graduate into that next level. So my earliest memory of equity was in kindergarten. I would learn, I'd go to school, I would come home to my grandma's house, and everything I learned, I would create worksheets for my little cousins, and I would teach them everything I learned. I remember drawing worksheets that the banana equals 5 and the grapes equals 2 and the orange equals 7, and teaching them. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now in L. Renee and Associates. I'm taking something that would otherwise be very difficult and really hard to understand, and I'm breaking it down at a very plain level, making it exciting and fun so that I can teach them and break down the barriers of understanding to really help them to connect to the knowledge. I did that in education, I did that in business development and sales, and I do it in project management. So for me, I've always felt a responsibility that every time I learn something, every time I'm introduced to something, I have a responsibility to share that with someone else. And that's carried me through every aspect of my career, from teaching to working in, media, to now working in project management and building other businesses that I've been blessed to build over the years. So my earliest memory was probably at 5 or 6, helping to train and teach. And I love it. It's a gift.
So, and I want to give a quick shout out there, because you did go to Prairie View, so you're a Panther.
Yes.
Shout out to Prairie View. My daughter goes to Prairie View. Praise God for that.
Yes.
I see a lot of stuff going on right now in this climate, good and bad. A lot of tension on both sides. A lot of stuff going on. But I come from a family to where my mom had me when she was 16 years old. And I've told this story ad nauseum. But my mom had me when she was 16 years old. It was, for lack of a better word, Latasha, it was, they wasn't boyfriend and girlfriend. It was just one of those things that happened, and outcomes Marcus D. Holman, right? So never knew my father. Come from Third Ward, that whole environment. So my mom went back to school. Graduated from the University of Houston with a degree in business. And my mom, growing up, would never allow me the excuse of my surroundings. She would never allow me to take the easy road out. My mom was very, very hard on me, making sure that she pressed me to higher levels of living. My earliest memories are my mom being on my back for school and this and for that. But my mom pressed me to success. And I take that mentality where we are right now as African Americans in this culture, in this nation, in this time, and I try to amplify that times a million. Because I believe that your story, my story, and others like it are how we got to the place where we are right now. Yes, we've all encountered barriers and obstacles and challenges, but what you did with those challenges ultimately determined how successful you would be in life. So talk about some of those challenges that you faced early on in your career, in your life, that you had to overcome in order to get to this place to where you are right now.
Man, there are so many of them. I think one of the challenges is really internal. It's a mental challenge of trying to find, be comfortable where you are for that moment, to continue to push and know that there is more, there is something greater. There is an inner voice, and I say this often, the silence can be so loud. And I think we are so used to putting things around us, whether it's music or it's other people or now it's social media, to try to fill the space so that we don't have to deal in that quiet time. But I force myself sometimes just to be quiet and to be still so that I can hear and really understand what God's voice is. When I think about my mom, who's passed on, I could be in a crowded room, but if I hear her voice, I can hear it plainly through all of the noise of everything that's going on because I have a relationship, right?
Yeah.
So for me, when I find myself in those points, whether it's a peak or a valley, where I feel like, I don't have my footing, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not really sure what's the next move, I have to be quiet enough so that I can hear his voice. But in order for me to hear his voice, I have to have the relationship. Because if not, it just sounds like a stranger, or it sounds like everyone else is talking, and I can't really understand what it is that he wants me to do. So when I think about those moments in my career where I felt unappreciated, or I felt like I wasn't getting what, I knew I deserved at that point, I had to get really quiet and to really just understand, okay, God, what is it? What's the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from this? My mom would always say, eat the fruit and spit out the seeds. Take what's good, the stuff that's bad, toss it. Be careful where you toss the seeds, because if you water them, then they're going to grow a crop of something else.
Absolutely.
So, I can think of countless times in my career where I was challenged, or even now within my business, as an African-American woman in the industry that I'm in, there aren't a lot of us who are doing managing the types of projects and managing the type of businesses and accounts. And it takes a great deal of audacity to go in and not consider, what chair am I supposed to sit in, but to pull my chair up to the head of the table, or to be in the front of the room and know that I deserve to be there. So, if I were to think of one situation where I felt like, my back was up against the wall, I would say it happened, I would say probably within the past 2 years, where I was working really hard and keeping very focused, and out of nowhere, something just came up into the business exchange that was so unexpected. I don't really believe in haters. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think that people have that kind of time to just sit and try to figure out how they can destroy something. I never understood that concept. I feel like people have other things that are more important to do. But I had a situation like that happen where someone just started throwing these accusations and doing things. I'd never met this person before in my life, did not know anything, and later found out that there were some things that were working to try to undermine. But what God has for you, come on now, is for you.
Come on now.
And when you don't give those things oxygen and you just keep yourself focused, it's about operating it with integrity. And if you know who you are and what you're doing and what your responsibility is, those things can really knock you off. Like, they can throw you off. But if you really stay focused and you operate with integrity, you realize that you really don't have to respond to those things. If you just stay focused and stay the course, everything works out. You don't even have to give it any oxygen. You just keep moving forward and know that if it's for you, God is going to deliver it and make it happen. So that's what I did.
So now, when you're going back to college and you lost your scholarship, there are the fork in the road. At that moment, I could go left, I could go right? And we all get to those places in our lives to where we face that pivotal fork in the road. Something happened, life issues, just life in general. And so that was a pivotal moment in your life, right? You got a scholarship, didn't work out, and now you have to make a choice on what you're going to do with this life event that you didn't see coming. And so when we're talking about life, Latasha, and there's a spiritual part of this, but when we're talking about life is going to bring with it its challenges. Jesus said that it's going to rain on the just and the unjust, right? It's going to rain, whether you're walking with God or whether you're not walking with God. That's just life and what life brings. But the blessing of the problems that come along with life is how it builds you up for the next season of your life. Because everything is a preparation. right? So when you're looking at the challenges of your life and how you overcame those things, if there's somebody that's watching right now that's going through a very difficult stretch, whether that's family, whether that's financial, whether that's career, whether that's spiritual, they're in a difficult stretch right now in their life. Like, what would you tell that person that's listening, that's going through life right now, something has hit them that they did not see coming, and now I have to respond to it? What's the encouraging word to that person right now?
I would first say congratulations, because what you're hoping for is on the other side of this. You just have to be patient and walk it out.
So patience.
Yeah.
Even in the midst of what I'm going through.
Patience. And congratulations. Because even if someone comes and something really, really tragic happens to them, I just have that kind of faith that I know that, everything works for the good of those who are called according to God's purpose. And there are so many things that are beyond our control. And all we can do is try to hold on to the controllables and do what we can do.
That's a good word.
And if you have faith and confidence in knowing that you are walking in God's purpose, it's going to be okay. Sure, I mean, whether it's death or it's divorce or it's a loss of anything, just know that God is ultimately in control. And if he took it from you, that means that he has ended that phase or that period, and he's moving you into another phase and another chapter. And you're going to see it. You can't always see it at that moment. You don't always understand what's on the other side of it. But if you're just patient and you keep trusting and you keep working and you keep believing, it's going to work out. It always does. It has to.
So I have and I want to make sure that I get your permission to do so, because in talking about challenges and what life brings, problems that it may present, you know, of course, as a pastor, we are constantly in counseling sessions, and we are counseling from A to Z. And anybody that knows anything about Bethel's family, it is a real church for real people. This church is literally open 7 days a week. And so there's no time schedule. You know, somebody don't just come up on Monday. They come up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and all throughout the week. And so think about whatever problem that you can name, we talk about it here in this ministry. Mm-hmm. And we're oftentimes trying to lift up people that are in the pit of the valley. I mean, not walking into the valley, they're in the pit of it. They've been in there for a minute, and they've been in that valley for so long that they're even used to the valley. Mm-hmm. They're used to the darkness. But we try to get them to understand that this problem that has come up on you that you did not expect can actually turn out for your good, no matter how bad it may be. And so I want to talk to you about a personal issue that happened a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And you know where I'm going?
Tell me.
With our dear sister, your dear sister.
Yes.
Here at the Church of Bethel's family, we got rocked to our core. And this is from a church perspective. I know as a family perspective, sure. It was even greater. Valentine's Day 2018, I got a call from our pastor early in the morning that our dear and beloved Dr. Latasha Earl had gotten into a tragic accident, car accident, and God had transitioned her to glory. Literally singing on Sunday, and the next day you have to grapple with the idea that she's not here. Mm-hmm. Tragic event. Nobody saw that coming. Mm-hmm. Like it came, and life just kind of smacked us in the face and said, now what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And our whole church family had to respond because she was such an integral part of the ministry to this tragic news. Now, as a family, I can only speculate that if we felt that way as a church family, sure. how much more intense that was as your family. Mm-hmm. So as you guys had to deal with that, what was that process like? How did you guys get through that event that was magnanimous, to say the least, how it just hit you head on and then just told you to deal with it? So how did the family, the Earl family, get through that particular situation? Yeah,
so it feels like a long time ago, but it was only a year ago.
Yeah.
It was only a year ago. It was tough, to say the least.
That was in 2019.
It was 2020.
2020.
Yes.
That's right, because that was right before
COVID.
Before COVID. Yes, you're right.
Right before COVID. Right.
Yeah.
It feels like it was that long ago, but then it doesn't. It was just about a year ago. I remember getting a call that morning. It was Valentine's Day morning. And my husband and I said, we're just going to take the day off. As a business owner, you never take the day off.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, we're going to take the day off. And we're going to drop Layla off at school. And we're just going to go and have lunch. We're going to hang out. We're going to have a good time. And I remember getting a call from one of my relatives. And she said, hey, have you talked to Tanya? And I said, no. And she said, okay, all right. And I said, well, what's going on? And she said, well, we've been trying to reach her. I don't know what's going on, but, you know, I was just wondering if you've talked to her. And I said, well, no, you know, talk to me. Tell me what's happening. And she said, well, I don't really know. I don't want to get you worked up. And at this point, I'm like, tell me what's happening. And so she said, I don't know. And I could tell the hesitation in her voice. So I said, tell me what's going on. So she said, they said that she died. And I remember almost passed out. I was like, what? And she said, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. So I remember telling my husband, let's go drop Layla off. Let's go figure this out. And I started calling Wayne, her husband, and he wasn't answering. And we just kept calling. So we got here to Bethel's and to drop my daughter off at school. And I remember a couple of the attendees walked up and they had a look on their face. And I'm like, why are they looking at me like this? And one of the attendants at her school looked at me and she said, I'm so sorry. And I said, sorry for what? And Sister August just grabbed her really quick and she said, no. And I started getting really nervous. So I said, okay. And then she said, Sister August says, well, Sister Latasha, Pastor August wants you to come over to the church. He wants to talk to you. And I said, okay. I'm thinking, I don't know what he needs to talk to me about, but I need to go. So we drove over, and I don't know if they spoke to my husband at that point because he's pretty much a rock when it comes to situations like that. He'll just try to help me usher through whatever it is. So we get over, and Pastor August meets me outside, and he opens his arms, and he says, Sister, I'm sorry. And I said, sorry for what? And he says, she's gone. And I just remember an emptiness. It was just a hollowness that I couldn't describe, and I just fell. And I did not know, I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand what happened. I didn't know any of the details. They just said, she's gone. And so immediately we started calling again to her husband to reach out to find out what happened. And then finally he answered, and he told us that she was involved in an accident. And we said, do the girls know? And he said, no. And I said, well, what do you want us to do? And he said, can you go to them? So my husband and I left, and we were unfortunately the ones that had to share that news with them. And they were distraught. They were, completely confused, caught off guard, just very unaware. It's nothing that you can ever prepare for. It's not any news that anyone ever wants to share. And in that moment of hurt, I had to transition into being a strong force for them and helping them and coaching them through and helping them to understand, what this transition means and how much their mother really loved them and how much, she was just a warrior, and to try at least for a moment to shift the narrative and to understand that although she's not physically here, she will always spiritually be here for them. And she represents so much as she did for Bethel's family, she represents that for our family as well. She was this amazing God-fearing warrior that I was blessed to call sister. We had so many fun moments of our relationships that I reflect on. Just the Friday prior to her passing away, we all got together to go to dinner, and we all hung out and we laughed, we sang, we had a really great time. And and it hadn't happened for a while. And so I feel like that was God giving us that moment to spend together and to be there. But she is just this amazing powerhouse that represents so much. And through trying to process it, my husband really helped me. He said, you know, God has us here all for a reason, and we're all here to give him glory and he gives us all an assignment. And he said, you know, it's a blessing that she completed her assignment by almost at 50. You know, sometimes, you know, people's assignments take a little bit longer, some take a little bit less. But the lives that she touched and the impact that she had and the work that she did and how she gave her life for Christ, God felt like, you know what, your job is complete and I'm ready to bring you home. And so for me, as much as I miss her, you know, anything that's funny, I would want to call her. If something crazy happened, I'd want to call her. I'd look forward to seeing her at church and hearing her voice and seeing her minister. And, you know, when I think about just how talented she was an amazing singer, but she was anointed.
Yeah, and
and
that's
I
the difference.
think there's something that's so different about that. You know, it's not about the runs. I mean, we come from a singing family, right? So it's not just about the ability to bend and fold your voice, but it's about how you can help to heal. And even through her transition, I would randomly see someone, and I saw a lady at the store, and she said, you know, I haven't been able to return to church yet. And I said, really? She said, every time I go, I want to hear her voice. I want to see her. I want to hear a word from her. People that I never knew said, you know, your sister sung me to Christ. I was so lost. I was in a valley. I didn't know what to do. But through her ministry, it helped me to have that hunger and that desire to get into the Word of God. And so when people use the word ministry of music, this is the last thing I'll say about it. You know, when they would say minister of music, my sister studied the Bible like she was really a pastor of a church. She'd wake up in the morning. She had at least 3 or 4 different, you know, references to the Bible that she could refer back to. She was really, really about God's word. And it's amazing because I remember seeing her, and it was a reflection of my mom. My mom would do the same thing. She was a student of the word. And I think that through her study and her commitment to Christ and knowing how important it is to be invested spiritually in a ministry is really where that anointing really comes through for her. And I'm prayerful that her children, her legacy, will continue to carry that same thirst and knowledge for Christ. And it also is a call to arms for me as well. Because I know that I had a praying grandmother and a praying mother and a praying sister, and I'm looking at my daughter like, okay, I owe it to you too. So I just really, really am honored to call her sister. And for me, you know, as much as I miss her, I think that for me, she's still here because I still get a chance to feel her presence around me, although she's not physically here. But we miss her tremendously.
And Latasha, the reason why I bring that up is because, again, as you are travailing through life, trying to do the best that you can do, there's no manuscript on life. Like, there's no book that's got chapter and verse that Tuesday, this is what's going to happen. Right. Like, you can't plan this stuff out. But when life kind of shows its hand to you, it presents you, in my opinion, and I've gone through my own share of struggles that we won't bore the audience with, but life presents you, in my opinion, with the benefit of the challenge. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see the benefit of a challenge in the middle of a challenge. But I've seen so many people, when life throws its best punch and knocks them down, I've seen so many people get stuck there. Mm-hmm. And it's a tendency, especially when you're walking with God and you're trying to be faithful, mm-hmm. and God allows this to happen. There's a tendency to get mad at God. There's a tendency to say, why me? Mm-hmm. Why now? And people get stuck in this little chasm that they're in. With that traumatic event that happened that impacted everyone's life, how are you guys able to harness that? Harness that hurt, that pain, that travail? How were you able to harness that and use that for your benefit moving forward? How did that bless the family? Did it bring it closer? Did it reveal some new things that God wanted you to do? Talk about that process once you guys got your hand around the issue.
So for us, we have always been a God-fearing, praying family. So of course, nobody saw this coming. So it was one of those situations where we knew that we needed to take a step back and ask God, okay, what is that you're trying to show us? What is it that you want us to do? And one of the great responsibilities was our ministry. And my cousin, Sister Donna Chapman, was, there in the choir with us and, directing and, really carrying on the ministry in different ways. And so when Pastor August invited her to take on that role, she came to the family and she said, how do you all feel about this? I know that this is something that is so very new for us. Will you all support me? Will you all stand with me? Will you all allow me to honor Tanya or Sister Earl in this way? And of course we said yes. And so for us, this was, as traumatic as it was still an opportunity to show the heritage of our family and our faith. Yeah. And to know how important it was to carry on the ministry because, A, that's what she would have wanted us to do, and that's what God intends. That's what he created us to do. So for us, we still nobody can play the piano or sing like she can. So we still, on any given Sunday that we're all together, you can find us harmonizing, looking at somebody because they're off key, or challenging each other to just continue with their ministry and with their walk. So really and truly, our focus has been to just stay very prayerful, to continue to keep her immediate family, her daughters, her husband, her son, her grandson lifted up, and to continue to be what God intended for us to be. And that's a family that loves God, that honors him, and that tries to use every gift that he gives us for his glory. And so that's really what we've done. And I will tell you, at that time that this was happening, that happened with my sister, I was negotiating one of the biggest deals in my company. And it was really unbelievable how God showed up, because it was at that moment that you would have expected for me to be wallowing in the bed somewhere. And there were moments where I was paralyzed, but I could hear her voice. I could hear my mother's voice. I could look around me and see that, my responsibility was to keep going. So I actually used it as fuel to move me forward and to propel me through and to celebrate those wins with her and with my mom and with my family here on earth, knowing that I was able to make it happen even through some of the most critical times in my life. So I just thank God that he allowed me to have an amazing support system, my husband, my family, my team, to make sure that we were able to make it happen. But it would have been so much sweeter to have her here to celebrate with me. But the great thing about it is, although I don't have the ability to call her and tell her, she's with me anyway. So she's there with me in my ear, talking and encouraging me and celebrating the wins right along the way.
So this is a preachery saying. Okay, it's real preachery, but people see the glory, but they don't know the story. Like they see the bells and whistles, they see the house, they see the car, they see the family, they see all the outward appearances, and they admire you from afar. Like, wow, they got it going on. But oftentimes what they don't see is the backdrop, the struggle that led to this particular place, and all of the things that you had to go through, go beyond in order to get to this place. Now, we're still not there. God is still molding us and shaping us and conforming us to the image of his son. But I'm so very thankful, because as I look at the life of Christ, Sister Latasha, I see a man that was perfect in every way, shape, or form. But as you look at his life was filled with challenges. And as you see this man who was without sin, he never said a bad word, never did a bad deed, never thought a bad thought. And this man that was perfect had to overcome challenges upon challenges upon challenges, and to ultimately the final challenge, which was on the cross of Calvary. And so I look at where we are right now, but I appreciate hearing about the journey. The niceties of the moment is great. We celebrate the success in the moment. But I think where the encouragement comes for people who listen is to hear about what it took to get to that place. Because a lot of people right now are in places that they don't think that they can get out of. And from whatever A to Z and whatever problem that may be, we all look at problems and deal with issues in different ways. And sometimes life kind of swallows us whole. And so I hope that when people are listening to you, you are the managing partner. Yes, you have your own company and you are doing tremendously well. You got a wonderful family. God has blessed you, and you're at a place into your life to where you've gotten your feet up under you. But I pray that when people hear about the journey, not the destination, that they're able to draw some encouragement from that, because they can say within their own minds, okay, this is where I am. And the model that I give to everybody, look, no matter where you are in life, start there. Okay? No matter where, if you got $1, start there. If you ain't got no money, start there. Wherever you are, start there. So I hope people can look at and hear the journey of Latasha Norwood, okay, and what it took for her to get to this ultimate place of where God wants her to be, and draw some serious encouragement that you've overcome some very difficult challenges in your own life, but you were able to harness that pain and use it to your benefit. So I want to ask you this. I have a heart for young people. I've always said, Sister Latasha, that I will not contend with a grown man. I'm not going to argue with anybody that's grown, because, a grown man, a grown woman has already made up their mind. They're going to do what they're going to do. But if you give me a young person, I will contend with that person. I will walk with that person through the valleys and the struggles of life, because there is potential on the other side of that person. So you got a young person right now that, and our youth right now are going through things. I'm 48 years old this year. Our youth right now in 2021 are going through things that I myself in my youth never had to go through. Issues and challenges, social media, stuff that I never had to go through. So the youth right now are in a very, very vulnerable place. And I believe that one of the things that the church is not doing very well is we're not putting a lot of attention on our younger generation. So as that young person is listening right now, and that young person is watching right now, and they're listening to you, how would you encourage that young person, going back to your own early years, about where to start, how to continue on? What type of mindset should they have? What do I need to do in order to be the best that I can be? Like, what would you tell that person who's in the valley of life right now, and how would you encourage them?
I would tell that person to do exactly what I did. Take a sheet of paper, rip it out, draw a line down the middle, write what you like and what you don't like, and just write it all down. Everything that you love to do, whether it's eating healthy or eating snacks or helping people or writing or, basketball, whatever that thing is that you enjoy doing, write it all down. On the other side, write down what you don't enjoy doing, whether it's homework or it's math or whatever it is, just write it down. And then take a step back. And everything on the like list, do more of that. Do it as much as you can. And then while you're going through that list, highlight some of those things that can maybe make a little bit of money. Maybe you like cutting hair. Maybe you like writing stories. Highlight those things, because those could potentially be career opportunities for you. Now, the dislike list is also important. You got to ask yourself 3 questions on the dislikes. What can I do about this? Can I change it? How can I change this and maybe make it not so bad that I can sort of kind of shift it to the like column? Or is it something that I have no control over and I have to get over it? Like, you can't get a new mom or a new dad, right? There are some things that are constants. And then the other things are, I can totally eliminate this out of my life completely. I don't want to do this anymore. This doesn't bring me joy. And so when I did this for myself, I realized that there were some things that were in my life on my like column that I wasn't giving enough attention and that I needed to devote more time to, and things that could possibly be a career opportunity for me that I could monetize and make money. So if I'm looking at a new job that I want to go for, maybe I can find something that is on the like column that mirrors that. And maybe that's a career option that I could look at, or maybe add to my business or something else that brings me joy. Those things on my dislike column, I got to make some real decisions because there are some things that you can't control, and you have to accept it and realize, you know what, this is something that's a part of my journey. If I'm adopted, If there is something tragic happening that I have no control over, I've got to realize that, you know what, I got to put this in God's box. But these other areas that I can control, I will control them. The other thing that I would tell people, which I don't know that people do it a lot, is to create a vision board.
Yeah.
Vision boards are really, really, really a great tool. It really helps you to see. There are different learning styles. Some people have to taste it. Some people have to say it. They have to hear it. They have to touch it. They have to see it. How do you connect, right? A vision board can be something that you either do digitally on the computer, maybe in PowerPoint, or maybe you go grab some magazines and you do it the old school way. You go to the dollar store, get one of those big posters for $1 and cut out pictures and words that represent what it is that you want. And post it somewhere where you see it all the time and that you can hold yourself accountable to it. But I'm going to take it a step forward. When I look at vision, I have to ask myself, okay, what is it going to take for me to do it? Is it going to take commitment of time? Do I need to find someone else that can get me closer to it? Who are the people that I need to surround myself by? Is it going to take money? Maybe I need to start saving or scaling back. How long is it going to take me to accomplish this? Do I have the willingness to stick it out and to really, really focus on getting it done? Maybe, that journey might take a year. It might take 10 years, but the progression that I can see myself flowing through will help me get there. What are the risks? What can go wrong? If this blows up, am I okay knowing, that was a part of the journey? Yeah. It's just par for the course. I'm going to keep going and keep pushing. So I would say, number one, writing those things down really helps you to visually see, and it holds you accountable to it, what those likes and dislikes are, and committing yourself to doing it. Even if it's committing yourself to doing it for a week or a month, right? Maybe it's working out or eating healthy, whatever that thing is, commit yourself to doing it, highlighting those things that you feel like are things that maybe can take you a little bit further, reevaluating that dislike list, asking yourself those questions, and then creating a vision board to kind of help you. And once you have a vision, I don't know where the quote comes from, but it says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Any road will get you there.
And it's like jumping into a car. That's what the GPS is for. If you jump into a car and you just start driving, you'll get somewhere. I don't know where you're going. You're going to get somewhere, but you're going to waste a lot of time, potentially a lot of money, and a lot of energy. But if you get into a situation where you plug in where you're going, the coordinates or the destination of where you're going, it might take you a little bit longer to get there. Yeah. You might have to pivot because maybe there's some traffic on the road. Maybe there's some construction. Maybe you have to detour, but you'll get there because you know where you're going. And that list helps you to identify what that looks like. And that vision board helps you to visually see where you're going. What do you put on your vision board? You can put a house, you can put college, you can put marriage, whatever those things are that are part of your vision, because it's very personal to you. But it's something that you have to commit yourself to, and it needs to be time bound. You need to give yourself a realistic timeline of when I want to accomplish this. So you can use it as benchmarks to say, okay, how close am I getting? It's just like what the GPS tells you. You'll be there in 15 minutes. If you look up 30 minutes later, something went wrong.
Yeah.
But you don't stop and pull over and get out of the car and give up. You keep going until you detour and you get there. And that's the same thing that life presents us. But you got to have a destination. You need to know where you're going. The other piece of advice that I would say is, if you can find a mentor, and I know we talk about mentors all the time, but a mentor, they have different purposes in your life. There might be a mentor that's just willing to call your baby ugly and tell you that is crazy. I don't know what you're thinking about. Mm-hmm. Don't do that anymore. There are some mentors that will rub your back and will coach you through and help you and wipe your tears. And I mean, we all need different things in our lives. So figure out what helps to motivate you. But ultimately, a mentor is someone that should hold you accountable. And it should be someone that you're willing to be honest with.
Absolutely.
That you're willing to share and be naked and transparent with, to say, you know what, I haven't figured it all out, but I know where I'm going. And when I feel myself getting weak, or if I feel like I'm getting tired, can I come to you for some encouragement? Can you help me to understand maybe how I can pivot through this journey to get where I'm going? Is there somebody that you can connect me to? Is there somebody that I can watch or shadow or mirror who's doing what I want to do that can kind of help me along this path? But having that vision and knowing where you're going and what's important to you and what you want and what you need, I think that's a really, really important secret sauce of getting to where that destination is. The final thing that I would say is pray about it. God is ultimately in control of this thing, and he's the ultimate project manager. So as much as we feel like we know exactly what we want and where we're going and what we should be doing, who we should marry, what school we should go to, what business we should start, how much money, all those things, God, it's in his hands anyway. So present those things to him and ask him, God, is this what you want? I want you to be the navigation for my life. If there's something or someone that's in my life, or there's something that's going on that's going to take me away from what your purpose and what your calling is, remove it. Because sometimes we aren't strong enough to do that. We aren't strong enough to walk away from that 6-figure salary to go and start this business that's going to be a multi-million-dollar business. Because we can only see starting at starting at Lee College, losing a scholarship, staying on somebody's bed at Prairie View, trying to get myself back into college, transitioning into physical education and being a 4th grade teacher, and then moving into media, and then starting my own company that's now a multi-million-dollar company, right? We don't see those journeys because we if God showed it to us, we probably mess it up.
That's exactly right.
We probably mess it up. It's too big.
It's too big.
Right? But God has to, he has to allow us, to walk the journey out. But here's the thing that I have not shared yet. A few years ago, 6 years ago, women started coming to me asking for me to be their business coach and their mentor, and I just knew I didn't have the bandwidth to do it. But I feel like if someone asks you to do something, and there takes a lot of vulnerability to come and ask for help. And if you do nothing, I feel like it's disrespectful. So I decided, okay, I can't coach 40 women, right? But what I can do is I can host a dinner. I host a dinner. I'll invite these women to come in. We'll participate. We'll share. I'll share. We'll hold each other accountable. We'll move on. I did not know that just a few months earlier than that, Congress had just designated October as National Women's Small Business Month. So I did the research and I said, you know what? I think I can do this a little bit bigger. So I approached the Urban League and the SBA and said, hey, I'm looking to host a dinner for about maybe 20 women. Would you like to participate? And they said, sure. So within 4 weeks, it transitioned from 20 women to over 120 women. We hosted this beautiful dinner at the Houston Area Urban League. The dinner was free. We had a 3-course meal. We completely transformed the space. We gave away airline tickets, Apple Watches, QuickBooks, everything that you can imagine. We had panels of women who scale their businesses from ground to multi-million-dollar companies, and those who transition from corporate America, every phase that every woman could possibly find themselves in. It was by invite only. And we were able to raise over $40,000 in less than 3 weeks to underwrite this event. And it was beautiful. And at the end of it, women were waiting for me to talk to me. And they said, Latasha, I've never experienced anything like this before. I was waiting for the gotcha, the gimmick of who was going to try to sell me something, and it never happened. And they said, I'm used to people praying on me, to come and attend these events, and then they want us to buy into something. But this was amazing. I can't believe, I can't wait until next year. And I said, whoa. Next year, no. This was just one time we were hosting this dinner. And here we are 6 years later. We've transitioned it. The organization is called She Said, She Led, She Is. It's an organization that is really about helping women to be audacious and to be bold and to walk into a room and know they deserve to be there, whether they have one toe in corporate America and the other one in their side hustle, or they're fully vested in running their business, or they're kind of teeter-tottering and wanting to do it. And so every October, we have this big conference where we host workshops. We bring subject matter experts in. We've partnered with some of the biggest companies, and we bring all these experts in to teach women, to help them to understand what it means to grow and scale a business, or to start a business, or to get into contracting with government. And we've blessed thousands of women. And it's one of those things where I feel like, every time I clear a hurdle, I know that there's somebody who's probably right behind me that's going to approach that same hurdle. And it goes back to me being in 5th grade and learning how to do math and coming and creating those workshops for my grandmother at my grandmother's house. I'm still preparing those same worksheets for these women through She Said. I'm still saying, hey, I just learned this. Somebody else is probably going to be faced with this situation. Let's build this into our curriculum so that we can provide this type of coaching and training for women so that when they do meet these obstacles, or when they are looking to scale their business, or they are looking to hire a team or transition from 1099 to full-time employee, or hire employees, or offer them 401k or benefits and all those things, there's no manual that teaches you how to do that. And so that's what She Said gifts me to do. So it's a ministry. So we've been able to grow it from an LLC to now a foundation. And we just recently launched our advertising agency as well. So women who are looking to promote their businesses, they can now come to us. We will help them to cultivate and to craft their messaging and to get it on television, on billboard. And so if you're following this, everything that was a part of my journey, teaching, I'm still teaching. Doing advertising and marketing, I'm doing that within my business. Helping people to figure out how to put things together, I'm doing that in my business through project management. So that same place where I started of that equity and that journey that God allowed me to pivot through, negotiating and understanding what that means. One of our clients came to us, she had already negotiated her contract, and I said, send it to me. I looked at it and I said, no, this isn't a good contract. We can get you more. We ended up getting her over $50,000 of value built into the contract she had already agreed to. So that same table that I sat at when I was transitioning from education, negotiating my salary, I can still use those same techniques to negotiate on behalf of someone else to get them what I know they deserve. So it just all fits together.
So again, normalizing success. Black people have the acumen in whatever field that they may be participating in, not just to be in the room. And we got to get rid of this idea of just being in the room and being happy with being in the room. But it's about knowing your value, knowing what you bring to the table, your skill sets, your abilities. And all of this is amazing when you're looking at life, Latasha, and you see how, you know, the Bible is intertwined through life, and there's so many life principles that you look at. But then you look over here in the Word, and it's been there for 2,000 years. The book of Habakkuk says to write the vision and make it plain, putting black ink on white paper. In my years as a financial advisor, I would always tell people this: you got to know the numbers. If you don't know the numbers, then nothing will happen if you don't know the numbers. And as I was looking at African American women, and they are starting right now 1,500 businesses every single week in America. 1,500 are started by African American women. 1,500 businesses every single week are started by African Americans. They create 1.2 million jobs in America. They have an annual revenue of $127 billion. Now, I'm just talking about African American women, just the women. I'm not even talking about the men right now. They have an annual revenue of $127 billion. When Black America makes up about 13 to 14%, depending on what poll you're looking at, African American women in the workforce can employ almost 5% of that population. That's a huge footprint. Right now, I know that it's well below our counterparts, and I understand that theirs is almost $11 trillion, so there's a huge gap that we have to make up. But there are ways in which we can close that financial gap. And my heart, Latasha, my heart is one of the quickest ways to close the economic gap between the have and the have-nots is through education. One of the ways that you close this gap, and the quickest way to close that gap, is through education. So I want to give you this last word. Our time is really shot by very, very quickly. I want to give you this last word because I think it's important that people understand that success is not something that we are high-fiving everybody about. It's just what we do. And once God has given us the opportunity to participate in whatever field or endeavor we may be in, we will succeed in that field. So give me two of your core life principles, mission statements, whether that's a mission statement for your job or whether that's a mission statement that you carry on in life. Those two core principles or mission statements that keeps you doing what you're doing now. What are those?
You know what? I would say it's just one. And it's the advice that my mother gave me. and it's eat the fruit and spit out the seeds. In every situation, there's always a lesson. There's always something that you can learn. There's something that can be used as fuel to get you to the next thing. And so in every situation that has happened in my life, I have to take a step back and say, okay, God, what's the lesson? What's the lesson for me? How can I use this? How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? And the seeds are what I get a chance to share to help prepare the next person that's going to follow in the journey behind me. So I know that, it's a part of life that there are going to be ebbs and flows, and there are going to be good and bad things that come from it. But if I really just stay focused in understanding that God allowed this to happen to me for a reason, something that is going to be used to grow and propel me into the next phase or the next chapter of my life, and to not allow myself to swallow in that, but to brush myself off, to get myself ready, and to keep pushing forward, that really, really drives me. Now, the other thing that I've learned over the years, because my mother started giving me that advice when I was probably old enough to even understand what she was saying. I understand that with seeds, they need water to grow. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those water is our tears. That's how we fertilize. Whenever you're trying to prepare soil to reap a harvest, you got to tear it up sometimes. You got to get the soil prepared and ready. And there is a season when that has to happen. And sometimes you can't see it immediately. You can't see the fruit. You can't see the harvest that's coming. But you have to be patient and you have to do the work. So I realized in that lesson that she was teaching me that you don't just plant a seed and walk away and expect for something to grow. You got to do the work. You got to water it. You got to shine some light on it. You got to maintain it, and know that that seed that you're planting can reap a harvest for so many.
Absolutely.
Right? And there is growth. It doesn't mean that it died. Just because a seed is inside of something, it's not gone. It can grow into something else and continue to replenish. So for me, I use that advice all the time. I realize whether I'm having the best day ever, that there's a chance that something is on the other side of it, and to be thankful and grateful for that moment, and to be appreciative of the lesson and to be aware of it. But know that in those darkest times when I cannot even see 1 foot ahead of me, to know that if I trust God and if I really stay focused, that it's going to be okay. So for me, I have that quote posted in my office: eat the fruit and spit out the seeds.
Well, let me tell you, and I want to bring this to a crescendo, okay? I am sitting across the table from an African-American woman who has went through many different fields in her life. She has, by God's grace, started her own business. Her business is doing extremely well. I sit here at this table many a time, Sister Latasha, and I have caught hell from people with the message that I preach. I preach a message of empowerment. Okay. I don't buy into this mantra, this idea about the oppression of black people. I know too many successful black people, and name whatever problem from A to Z, name poverty, name incest, name rape, name fatherlessness, name any problem that you want from A to Z, and I can put my hand on an African-American male or female that has been through that, overcome that, and then gone on to do great and dynamic things in life. I know too many. My circle is filled with very successful black men and black women who are doing well in life. And so I push the idea that Black America is able, and we're not looking for a handout. We're not looking for people to post us up. Yes, we're going to go through our challenges. Yes, we're not going to skip down the yellow brick road and sing Kumbaya. I get that. I understand that. I believe that. But within Black America is the power given to us by God. When you look at any other ethnic group, we have been spiritually empowered by God since our founding. Mm-hmm. And we have something inside of us that drives us through every problem and situation that we may come up against. And so I advocate for empowerment, that no matter where you are in life, you can be better than where you are. But I also, Sister Latasha, I redefine what success is. Everybody can't have the 3 letters in front of their name: CEO, COO, CFO. Everybody can't operate on the 50th floor. And I hold the mantra that we don't value as much as our foreparents did and forefathers did the value of hard work. So whether that's you taking out the trash, somebody's got to cook the food. My grandmother didn't get anything more than an 8th grade education. She was a waitress all of her life, but she was the hardest working woman I've ever known. So she taught me to value that no matter where you're planted, bloom there. And so I push the idea of empowerment, and that we don't need everybody posting us up, and we don't need people caressing us on the back telling us it's going to be okay. Allow us to do what we do, and you will see Black America flourish. You are a prime example of that. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I believe that people need to hear this story and the other stories that will come about people that have gone through hell and high water, but did not allow those problems to stop them from progressing forward. And so I want to say publicly to you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, man. I'm so proud of you. And I don't want to specify this just to an ethnic conversation, but it's important to me that I get people to understand the dynamic of Black America, that Black America is not the images that you see on TV.
Sure.
Okay, that doesn't define the populace of Black America. Black America is strong, it's resilient, it's smart, it's capable, and we can do very, very well if you allow us to do it, right? And so I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your family is a jewel here. And I believe that, as Pastor August always said, I'm going to steal this from him, I'm giving him credit, the best for you is yet to come.
Thank you.
The best for you is yet to come.
I receive it.
So I want you to look right here into your camera, and I want you to give a plug, a big, strong plug, and I'm not going to put the words together this time, L. Renee and Associates, LLC. I want you to sit here in this camera.
Sure.
And I want you to give a big plug for your company, how they can reach you, what you do, and so on and so forth.
Great. L. Renee and Associates is a project management consultancy firm that supports companies from the C-suite to the front desk by providing training, consulting, and recruiting for professionals. So if you are interested in learning more about project management, it is a very viable career path. No matter what industry you want to work in, project management is industry agnostic. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can be more competitive in the workforce, give us a call. You can reach us at 713-393-8745, or of course you can find us on our website at www.lreneellc.com. There you'll find out more about who we are and what we do and how we can help you. And for those of you who are interested, women in starting a business, growing a business, or scaling a business, check us out at SheSaidSheLed.com. We have our annual conference coming up in October. We'd love to connect you to resources and people that can help to mentor you and coach you and help you to figure out what that is that you can start that business doing. Or if you're looking to scale your business or do government contracting, we can help you do that too. So I'm really excited about what you're doing and what God has blessed you and positioned you to do. And if I can help you to get one step closer, I'm willing and happy to help you do that.
Miss Latasha Norwood, managing partner of L. Renee and Associates, LLC. You want to give a quick shout out to your husband and your kids?
Absolutely. The person that is like the cheerleader of all cheerleaders, my husband, Will Norwood, who is absolutely amazing. Thank you for being such the blessing that God intended for you to be. We prayed very early on for our marriage to be our ministry, and it definitely is. I'd like to also acknowledge my baby girl, Layla Jean, and also Lily and all of my family, my team at L. Renee and Associates, my team at She Said, and all of those who are always championing for me. Thank you so much for your love and support.
Ms. Latasha, I am so thankful that you accepted the invitation to come on here on Studio B. Everybody, I am Pastor MDH. Thank you so very much for joining us here on the set. Remember, wherever you're watching from, like, follow, subscribe, comment so that you don't miss anything going on the set of Studio B. And remember, God loves you. He has a rich plan for you. And until next week, we'll see you soon.
Scope, time, and cost are constraints every project faces, and having the right team to manage them is the key to your success. L. Renee & Associates is an industry leader in project management and an authorized training partner with the Project Management Institute. From training, recruiting, and consulting, our project management experts will help improve your team's performance. So whether it's construction, technology, healthcare, and more, L. Renee & Associates is your partner for all things project management. Let's get started today.
Welcome, everybody, to Studio B. I am your host, Pastor MDH. Thank you so very much for joining us. And as is our custom, wherever you are watching us from, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, IG, make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, and comment. No matter where you access your podcast from, Spotify, Pandora, Google, wherever that may be, you can access Studio B from those same platforms. So make sure that you are following this and that you are giving this out so that we can increase the viewership and followership of the podcast. So thank you, everybody that joins in every single week. Your viewership is not taken for granted, and we thank you so very much. Today in the studio, I have a very, very special guest. I know I say that when I have guests in here all the time, but there are guests that are very, very, very special. And this young man I've been knowing for... let's put it out there, Dave, maybe, is it 10 years?
That's close enough, yeah.
About 10 years, okay. A great friend of the ministry, great friend. I took a very, very eye-opening trip that we're going to talk a lot about here during the podcast to India, but I want to introduce Mr. David Moorhead, who is the CEO of Child Freedom Coalition, a good friend of the ministry. How you doing today, Dave?
Man, I am excited to be here. So I'm so proud of what you guys are doing here and using technology in the 21st century to really make an impact. So it's great to be back at Bethel's Place. So.
And we are, the Bible says that your spirit will testify to my spirit that we are both children of God. We have a kindred spirit, man, and we, I don't say this very lightly, but we connect. And having people that you connect with, I think, is very, very important in life. I've been wanting to do this and in this kind of form for quite a bit because this is something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is global missions, and we'll connect the two. But global missions for me, as everybody know, over 110 mission trips, 31 countries around the world. This is really where I discovered, and I don't mean this in a very haphazardly way, but really where I discovered God's grace. Being able to see and witness cultures and people from different walks of life has really enhanced my spiritual worldview. I mean, greatly enhanced it. And it gives me a perspective that unfortunately a lot of people cannot enjoy because all they seen is what they see every day. This is their normal, right? The Western church, the Western idea, the Western concept. But when you go around the world and experience different people in all different walks of life, it really gives you this 30,000-foot perspective that otherwise you cannot enjoy. So, man, I'm excited about today because I want to get into this, man, because I think people need to know about it. We live in bubbles. And so as long as it's not affecting my zip code, my house, my family, then...
Hey, I was there. I'm a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. And I grew up, and even when I was married, going to church and hearing incredible testimonies about what God was doing in other places. And some of them really scary. And I always thought, what an incredible story. But I sure am glad that it's that guy and not me.
Yeah.
And here I am now.
And here you are now. Here you are now. So, David, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Child Freedom Coalition.
So, in my previous life, I was in mortgage banking for 20 years. I had a wife, 2 kids, very comfortable. And my wife and I were a part of a church, and we really sensed God working in our hearts that something was going to change. And it was almost a restless spirit, of a prodding that, you're not happy, you're not satisfied. And it was a scary feeling. And, God led us through this path, and we finally got to the point where we just gave up and said, all right, God, we're believing in the promises of what you say in your word. So we're going to cash our chips in. We're moving all in and seeing what you have in store. And it changed that quickly. And it became very apparent that God did not want me in the mortgage world, in mortgage banking. And over a period of months, we were traveling on cloud nine spiritually, and just had a peace that we don't know what's in store, but we know God's in control. And, that transcending peace was just incredible. And I remember about 3 or 4 months later talking to my boss and quitting my job, not knowing what was next for me, but just taking that step of faith. And, I think like my dad, I always had a heart for missions. We would always talk about things that were going on. And even before my wife and I took that leap of faith, I became friends with this pastor in India through social media. And he was doing really incredible work.
Is that how you connected with him?
We did, on Facebook.
Wow, really?
So I started messengering him and asking him questions. And basically at that time what he was doing was going into these rock quarries in India where they were enslaving these kids. And these kids were forced to work from sunup to sundown. They lived in the quarry. They got maybe one meal a day. And they were abused. It's just a pit of hell, literally. And he would go and take food and donated clothing to these kids and just minister to them. And his goal was to try to raise money to ransom these kids and pay off their debt so that they could escape. And we just thought, and talking to my dad about it, there's got to be a way to get the laws enforced. And right around that time, our partner was nominated, and I'm keeping his name out of this for obvious reasons, but he was nominated by the Indian government for Social Worker of the Year. And he's not a social worker, he's a pastor. And he ended up winning that award, and it gave him a platform to be on TV and to stand in front of a large audience, and many politicians were there, and he said, this is what's happening to our children. And if somebody like CNN comes in here and exposes this, it's really going to make India look bad. And so some of those politicians, listened to his words, and they started enforcing the laws, and the floodgates opened. And he started rescuing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids that were being released from quarries.
Now, he was literally redeeming kids to ransom them out of these rock quarries. And this is, David, first of all, I didn't know that that's how the connection came about. This pastor is and we've spoken about him, me and you, many a times before. This guy is the real deal.
Yeah.
And, we talked about the isolation of the Western church and the Western culture and kind of staying in our zip code and within our framework of our own house. And as long as it's not affecting me directly, then, I feel bad about that over there.
Yeah.
But that's them. This is me.
Yeah.
But this pastor is really doing not just a great job, not just a phenomenal job, but he is really doing the work of the Lord.
Yeah.
And going into these particular places and risking life and limb, literally, to rescue these kids out of these enslavement camps. So, I mean, how do you compartmentalize that to somebody that's watching that is a typical American, middle class, mom, dad, kid, dog? How do you compartmentalize that? How do you get them to see that in the space that we're living in here in America?
Yeah. And I was the same way. And, in order to really quantify something, you've got to do research on it and figure out what the problem is. And what I discovered was that there are more people enslaved right now than any time in human history.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at India, the numbers were staggering. And, what I discovered was that in human trafficking, in slavery and forced marriage, bondage servitude, all of the different ways that you can define modern slavery, in America, they estimated there were maybe 600,000 people in trafficking. If you look at a country like China, which is as large as India population-wise, they're neck and neck. And China is obviously a closed country, and they estimated that there were, about 4 million people enslaved in China. And then you looked at India, and the number was 8 million. And that's twice the slave population of China. And you start unpacking what all of that means. Why is it so high in India? Why does the UN rank India number one for girls being the most dangerous place on the planet? And so what we discovered by all of these children that were getting rescued from all of these horrific circumstances was the common thread was that they were all untouchables. They were outcasts.
Now walk through that, because we got to kind of get to the meat and potatoes about that, because in order to unpackage it so that the average everyday American, to bring them closer to this knowledge, we got to unpack that. So we're talking about the caste system in India.
Yes.
And these untouchables rank all the way at the bottom. Bottom.
Yeah, they are outside of the caste system. So
which says a lot.
Outcast. And so in India you have what they call the SC, the scheduled caste. And by the way, the caste system has been deemed illegal decades ago.
Yeah, decades ago.
But it's so prevalent because it's a part of their culture, and most importantly, it's a part of their religion. And the predominant religion in India is Hinduism. And in simple terms, Hinduism is a pathway, and that pathway involves several reincarnations. And where you are in this lifetime is a result of how you lived your previous life.
So if you come in as a roach,
Yeah.
then the life that you lived before that was not very pleasing.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So if you're an outcast, then you're shunned by society because you were such a bad person in your previous life, then the sooner you die, the better. And if I try to help you, then that might bring bad karma in my life, and that may affect where I travel in my next lifetime. So Dave, let me ask you. So I think it was 2000 and was it 14 that we traveled? Yeah.
Okay,
I think so.
2014, we took a small team to India, and let me tell you, in all the places that I've been around the world, India was one of the most eye-opening experiences that the Lord has allowed me to have. The population, the denseness of the population, people just on top of each other, people everywhere. And then all of these little different sects and these little, it reminds me when I went to Czech Republic on a mission trip. As you're walking through Czech Republic, you see all of these religious statues everywhere. Like it's inundated in the city of Czech Republic. I mean, there's literally a religious symbol or religious statue every 5 feet. But Czech Republic is a pagan to the 19th power city. So you see all of these religious figurines and stuff all around, and you would think that they have a religious pulse of what's going on with God, but they have all but abandoned the things of God. So when I was going through India and I see all these little elephants and I see all these little Hindu things everywhere like that, it just reminds me of the fact that when we are fighting this war, and again, it's hard to quantify this to the typical American who has only seen American stuff, watched American TV, immersed in American culture. It's kind of difficult to kind of get them to see it because in order to see it, you got to really see it. But this thing is so prevalent in India to where it's really like it's an uphill battle, isn't it?
it is. You could literally pour billions of dollars into that country and it wouldn't do any good. India is a very powerful emerging market country, tremendous wealth, but because of this system that they've set up with Hinduism and the caste system, that it is something that's inescapable if you're an untouchable. You're in an endless cycle of poverty because you're shunned basically by the rest of society.
Now, Dave, now walk that point, because now here in America, you could be born into a poor family. You could have parents that were not educated. You could have grandparents that were on welfare. But if you're born in America, you're born with certain opportunities. So no matter where you were born at, you have an opportunity to get out of that place. Whereas in India, if you're born into this caste system or into this untouchable class, there is no way that you can get out of that caste system.
For the most part, it is inescapable, but we have done our best. We've found ways to try to overcome those hurdles. So the hurdles that you're looking at are basically socially cue-driven. And it would be your countenance, how you carry yourself, how you're dressed, how you look, what your name is, what family you come from, what village you come from. And if we're able to overcome those hurdles, and most importantly, providing an education for most of these kids, the first time in their life they've ever received an education, and then vocational training, give them an opportunity to earn a living and put a fresh set of clothes on them. So let me give you an example. If you drive down to the Fourth Ward and you see a young girl standing on the street corner that's dressed a certain way, you're going to jump to certain conclusions very quickly. But if you took that girl and you nurtured her and you taught her that she mattered and that there was a God who loved her, and you nurtured her, you educated her, and you equipped her, you gave her a new set of clothes, and then you drove by again and you saw that same girl standing there, you would have a totally different outcome. So that's our goal. One of the neatest things about Child Freedom Coalition is not something that we created, but it was created by these kids that were rescued. Back in 2013, we had a lot of the older kids that were rescued, talking about 17, 18, 19 years old. And these kids had never received an education. And they didn't want to start from scratch. They didn't want to learn their ABCs. They just said, hey, teach me how to do something so I can go make something for myself. And so we bought some sewing machines, the old-fashioned foot pedal grandma sewing machines, and they looked at those and said, that's my ticket. And so these girls were literally fighting over who gets to sew next, 24 hours a day.
A sewing machine. A
sewing machine. 3 a.m. in the morning, a girl is taking her turn and practicing. And so our partner saw an ad in a newspaper for a shirt factory. And he talked to the manager and said, this is who I am. You can check around town and you'll find out I'm a good guy. And I have these girls, and these girls know how to sew. And so he told her where they came from, and she was really compelled by that. And so she traveled by bus like 6 hours and came to the girls where they were living and met them, heard their stories. And then she said, I'm going to test every one of you girls. Here's a shirt pattern, and I want you to sew it from start to finish in 45 minutes. Every girl that took that test passed. And so she went back and contacted our partner and said, I'm going to hire 50 of your girls. Wow. And the starting pay is going to be $300 a month.
Wow.
And
which is an astronomical amount of money.
So in India, that's almost 10 times what an untouchable is going to earn in a day. Wow. And so these girls grabbed onto that opportunity, and 6 months later, every one of those girls were promoted to new positions, earning a higher income. But the remarkable part, Marcus, was that we started seeing money coming from those girls. And it was out of gratitude, and it was out of devotion.
Sewing back into it.
Yeah. And some of them, it was out of motivation, saying, go rescue my brother, go rescue my sister. They're still out there. And I'm not talking about tithing. It's humbling to see the devotion and the gratitude. And now you fast forward, 7 years later, 8 years later, and we've now graduated 800 of those kids that are now a part of society in India, and they continue to give back, and they're giving back between $30,000 and $40,000 a month. So that gets poured right back into the kids that we're caring for, and cumulatively, they've given back over $1.1 million U.S. dollars.
And that's Dave, let me ask you. Take us back to the untouchables that are sold into these enslavement camps. Describe the conditions, because the pastor in India described the conditions, which are beyond words, but describe the conditions, because it's typically sexual abuse and a lot of different abuses that are going on. So describe what are these kids facing on a daily basis?
Yeah, so how did they get there?
Yeah.
Now, all these years later, we've seen the rescue of tens of thousands of children, and the majority of them get reunited with their parents. So if you look at where an untouchable lives, they're outside of society. They're miles below the poverty line, and they're trying to eke out an existence. And the typical untouchable family might have 5, 7, 8, 10 children. And if you think of the family unit, it would be comparable to a family unit here, let's say 100 years ago. And if I lived out in the country, I would have a passel of kids so they could help support the family. So if one of those kids gets sick, then I need money to buy medicine. And I need to go down to the payday advance store and see the loan shark and get a little loan so I can buy money. And when I can't pay off that debt, then the loan shark shows up and says, well, I'm going to take one of your kids, and they're going to work off your debt. But that debt never gets paid off. The interest is too high. These people are largely ignorant, and sometimes they're manipulated. You'll have someone that will come in and they're well-dressed into their village and say, look at me, I'm high caste. I come from the big city, and we have a special school that we've built for poor children, and I've got 7 spots left. Here, take my kids, and the neighbor take my kids, and those kids are sold to brothels, or they're sold to a rock quarry owner or a brick factory. And that's, how these kids are abused, because they're not human. They're subhuman, is the way that they're taught. And that's the way society looks at them. So the majority of the kids that we have been rescued from rock quarries. But we have kids that have been rescued from brick factories, from sex trafficking, 4th Street begging, abandonment, on and on.
Now, these rock quarries are slate?
They're slate rock quarries for the most part in the part of India that we're working in. And these kids are basically manual laborers. They're moving rubble from one place to another, like a fireman's carry, just passing it all day long. And they cull out the slate, they haul it up by a crane, and it's loaded onto trucks and taken to distribution centers. So unfortunately for these kids, this is also a brothel. So the quarry owner and his friends and the workers and the truck drivers will come in and abuse these kids. So that's their existence.
So, there's an interesting dynamic that I've always thought about when we're looking at, in America, the niceties that we kind of enjoy, those who wear Nikes and Jordans. When you begin to start looking at how those particular things were produced, the child labor that was used to make those particular shoes, clothes, whatever it may be, and nonetheless with the same amenities that we enjoy, the beautiful marble, the slates that line our bathrooms and in our showers. That thing has a trail. It has a history. And most of the time that history is sorted because we're living in a commerce world. Whoever can give me the best price, regardless of where the origination came from, that's what I'm going to do. But as we begin to start looking at those things, Dave, those things have a history, and sometimes that history is very, very dark about how they got to us. Now, we're none much no wiser. We go to Home Depot, we go to an outlet center, whatever the case may be. But these things have a real, real history behind them. And now these kids, to which I've seen, and these kids, I preached a sermon a couple years ago that said the joyness of my heart. And I said, anytime that you're feeling down in life, find a child. Like anytime you're starting to feel sorry for yourself and things are not going right, find a child and look at the smile on their faces. And when I went to India and saw these kids that were rescued out of these rock quarries and out of these particular places, but the smiles, considering what they came through.
It's an indescribable joy. And what's really incredible about these pastors that rescue these kids is that, their number one priority is sharing the gospel. And so when these kids are rescued, they're scared half to death. They're thrown into a church, and they just think they're going to get sold again. And then they start to realize, I'm not getting abused. They're actually letting me rest. They're feeding me. And then they start to ask, why are you doing this for someone like me? And that's how tangible the gospel is. And so they discover a God that loves them, and they discover this indescribable joy. Because what these kids have endured would put us through therapy for the rest of our lives. And in our weak first world problems that we have to deal with, what they dealt with, the stories that you heard when you were there are just, that's the worst thing I've ever heard happen to a human being in my life. And then the next kid comes up and tells a story that's even worse. And to now see where they are now and the joy that they have. And these pastors use this opportunity because the majority of the kids that have been rescued, we've reunited with their parents. And so guess what happens when these kids are reunited with their parents? The parents say, why are you doing this for someone like us? And that, again, it provides that same type of transaction. The pastors get to tell them they matter. They matter to God. So,
and I just give me a minute, because I haven't even got to any of this, man, because God is doing this a different way. Let me. So you talk about first world problems. One of the things that I love is the gospel presentation is going forth in power, but it is tangible, as you say. And I have been on record, because what you're doing with these kids is you're getting them to identify with the Creator, that He made them in His own image and according to His own likeness. So in order to fix all of these problems that are facing the world right now, it has to be, we have to fix how we view people, because how we view people is ultimately how we will treat them. As you said, these untouchables are considered to be or viewed as subhuman, not even human-like. And I mean, there's so many different correlations that I was thinking about on my way here, with slavery and the slave owners, how they viewed their slaves as being subhuman. These people are not even really people, so you can just kind of treat them any old kind of way. So how you view a person will ultimately determine how you treat that person. And the thing about the gospel in this context, which is why missions for me has just absolutely illuminated my world, we are living in America right now that talks a whole lot about first world problems. Like, we complain and we get on Twitter and we're complaining on $1,000 smartphone. Like, this is our life. This is what's wrong with my life. Let me tell you what's wrong with my life on my $1,000 smartphone, right? So we have first world problems in a large degree. And because we haven't been exposed to anything outside of our common day, it puts us in this place where those first world problems that may seem significant to you in the grand scheme of life, Dave. And I'm talking about these kids were like 5, 6, 7 years old. I'm talking about the kids that I saw. Now, we had older kids that were in there too, but I'm talking about these 5, 6. And when we air this podcast, there's going to be pictures that I'm going to put up. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Of the kids. I'm talking about the smiles on their faces when they have been rescued, show the love of God, show compassion, and their lives have absolutely been transformed because you got them to see that they were made in the image of God and that they were important. When you see what you guys are doing in regards to the gospel presentation, when you look at the Western Christianity and the global church, you see some stark differences, don't you?
Yeah.
So how do you get this church member who is a born-again Christian here in America, but goes to a nice, comfortable church with air conditioning blowing on the back of their neck, sitting in very padded pews, multi-$1,000 sound system, light system, smoke shows, and the rest? How do you get that person who is a genuine born-again believer, how do you get them to believe and even care about things that are happening outside of their world?
Wow. Where can I go with that? I want to speak to our first world problems. And, I heard something recently that describes the situation that we're in when we complain about not having Wi-Fi reception on our $1,000 phone, or that we have to wear a mask when we go into our air-conditioned church to be entertained and enlightened for 1 hour and not 1 minute more.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can be first in line at the restaurant.
Yeah.
What I heard it described is that we're in a soul famine, and we have everything at our disposal except for the things that we actually need. And there's a deep hunger when you see, this isn't anything new. This has been happening for years and decades where people are leaving the church. And what we're seeing in today's society in America is a result of that. I firmly believe it. And when we just focus on things that are going to satisfy us outside of God and what His Son has done for us, then we're never going to get fulfilled. And we keep taking that left-hand turn of trying to find fulfillment in every other place with everything that is at our disposal. But we're ignoring what our body is yearning for, which is love and joy and peace. And you look at these kids that have been rescued in India, and they possess nothing, but they have everything. And so when you actually get the blessing of getting to go and experience that, to experience worship, and you hear these kids pray, and you don't know what they're saying. They're not speaking English, but you know what they're saying. And they're fully expecting God to perform miracles on a daily basis. In America, we don't need miracles.
That's right.
We have miracles like this.
Yeah.
And what we carry around in our hand, it can give us any answer to anything. I don't have to memorize numbers anymore.
Yeah.
And it's very perplexing to me, and there's only one way, there's only one answer, and that word is repent, and that's an ugly word in today's society.
Now, Dave, me and you have, not just you, man, many friends that I talk to, and I don't mean to bring this to a degree to where we are pointing fingers and things of that nature, but there is a lot to what you said. The Western church has been so insulated to where it is quickly becoming a Christ-less church, to where we come to be empowered, we come to be made to feel good about whatever issues or problems that we may be having, but we are isolated within our own communities. And when you look at the difference between the first century church, the book of Acts, and the modern church of where we are right now, you'll see stark differences between those two. And and this is solely because in 2010, when I took my first mission trip to Kenya, Africa, And I'm not trying to overhype this. So as God is my witness, if I'm lying, I'm dying. I'm not trying to overhype this, but in my first mission trip in 2010 to Kenya, Africa, literally the world opened up to me because I went into a church. We got there at 9 o'clock in the morning. It was an open roof church. It had dirt floors. It had little broken down milk cartons for seats. The kids led worship. We got there at 9 o'clock. We literally didn't leave until 6. It was the heat was exasperating. I was sweating out of every clothing that I had, but I didn't know that 9 hours had passed. 9 hours had passed in a praise and worship church setting, in an open roof with dirt floors, hot milk crates for the seats, they banging on buckets for drums. But the intensity of their worship. And then, and I've shared this with you even on our last one, the first couple days and weeks back after any mission trip, no matter where I go, are typically the hardest because we go to places that are not on the postcards. So we're not going to vacation spots. We're going to where the least of these are, because that's where Jesus told us to go. But then when we go into these places and we cooperate with these pastors, and these pastors show us these communities and they take us to their services, and we see people that literally have nothing. But the joy of the Lord that they have on the inside is absolutely amazing. So when you try to bridge those two and you come out on the other side, it's not that you're being insensitive to people when they are bringing up their problems. It's not that you're being insensitive to them, because it's a problem to them. But I think one of the things that I try to do is to try to get them to go higher. Okay, that may be an issue for you. You can't get on Wi-Fi right now. That's a big deal for you. That's a really big deal for you, and it's causing your emails and your internet to load slowly, and it's a big deal for you. But let me tell you about something else that'll hopefully give you more perspective on that. So as you were going through trying to increase awareness about what's going on in India, how would you bring them? I mean, are you telling them that, are you offering them to come over and see these problems front and center? Or how do you try to engage them to get them really involved in this process?
Yeah. So you've been to India with me, and you know that it's not what I'd call an evangelism trip. It's not. It's not. So we're not going to Taj Mahal.
No,
seeing Dubai on the way there.
We had to have a couple of bodyguards with us.
Yeah.
Moving stealthily. Then we have a lead card that was telling us where to go and all that other good stuff. So it's not your typical mission trip.
Yeah.
But explain further.
Mission trips aren't for everybody, but they are. You may not just be ready yet. India was the last place in the world I wanted to go.
Now, how many times have you been to India?
I think 28 before COVID, Wow. And then I haven't obviously been back since, but I long to be there. And but it literally was the bottom of my list. And I'd been on mission trips before, and I'd seen extreme poverty, but it just, when I went to India, it wrecked me, and knew I had to do something about it. And so that's how we got started in 2012. And the best advice my dad gave me was, because I didn't know anything about fundraising, and now millions of dollars later that have been raised, his advice is still true today, and it's just tell the story, let the Holy Spirit work. It takes all the pressure off. And so that's what we do, is tell the story. So this is not a nonprofit corporation that raises money for rescued children in India. This is a ministry as well. And so when we started, we decided we want to be different. We want this is God's ministry. And we want to do everything we can to stand out. So what we decided when we started this was that we wanted to tell people that 100% of their funds, of their gifts, were going to go to help these rescued children.
100%?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's even to the extent that when they donate by credit card online, we'll go back and reimburse their credit card fee.
Wow.
So 100% of that money goes to India.
Wow.
Why do we do that? Well, there's a study, I think it was by NYU, and the study said that over 40% of Americans don't trust charities, which means they don't give. 70% of Americans think that charities mismanage money.
Wow.
So our goal is to go after that 40-something% that have never given before. We'll certainly take anybody's money, but our goal is not about getting somebody's money. Our goal is about getting somebody involved, and it's the transaction is what can God do in that person's life by them getting involved and helping these rescued kids.
So once a person connects to child, once they connect to your organization and they click submit and that money goes, what's the process of that $500 donation? What is it? What does it go and what does it do?
A lot of it is in child sponsorship. So you can sponsor a child that we care for $1.10 a day, and that provides their food, their medical costs, and their education.
Now, Dave, many people have saw that on a late night TV show. You know, they got the African kid with the flies flying around his head and
the tear going
yeah,
down,
and the tear coming down his eye, and said that you can sponsor this child for, you know, a cup of coffee a day. Now, I've been there. I need you to hone in that for $1 and something a day, you can sponsor a child and will give him food, education, and lodging.
Yep. So we have a children's home that we constructed there, and it's actually approved by the government in India to house up to 2,000 students or 2,000 orphans, whatever you want to call them. So we have plenty of kids that are available for sponsorship, and we partner someone with a child, and they know that their funds are caring for that specific kid. And when that kid grows up, that kid is going to have the opportunity to get vocationally trained in a trade. And that trade would be what we would consider a middle-class, blue-collar job, just like we have here. It might be an electrician, might be a welder, a carpenter, it might be a seamstress, you know, all of those different opportunities. Those kids are looking at an opportunity to become a part of society in India. And that's truly the only way that country is going to change, is not from the top to the bottom. It's from the bottom to the top, from the inside out. Because these kids are becoming parts of workforces all over India, and they're witnesses for Christ in the workplace. And so we hear stories of these kids leading Bible studies and having prayer time with the people that they work with. It's just incredible.
You know, my problem, David, is even though when I try to communicate it to the best of my ability, you know, the tremendous work that is being done in India by yourself, by Pastor, and risking so much on behalf of these kids, you know, pardon me. But Mark chapter 9, verse 42 says, it would be better for you to tie a millstone around your neck and to be cast into the depths of the sea than to harm one of these little ones. I am absolutely, you know, children are my passion.
Yeah.
You know, I make a joke, and my wife says, you know, I'm the baby whisperer, but I believe that children have a sense, and so I always pay attention to how a child acts around an adult. If a child doesn't act around an adult, that's giving me signs and clues that there's something in that person that's not right. Children are God's voice, and oftentimes they go voiceless. And what we're doing to our kids, not just in India, in America, but around the world, and how kids are suffering. And David, I mean, they are suffering. I'm talking about, you know, little kids that haven't had an opportunity to experience the joys of life. Are literally going through hell on earth. There's no reason that the evil in somebody's heart of how anybody could abuse a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old and literally rob them of the joy of being a child is just unspeakable. So when you guys are going in and Pastor's doing what he's doing, and I need to do a side shot, and hopefully you'll catch it from the lunch that we had. Can we talk about that in broader terms with Pastor in that situation?
Sure.
Okay. So there's a pastor, man, and he is the real deal. He's currently in prison right now.
He is in jail, yes.
for preaching the gospel.
For preaching the gospel primarily, yes.
So, so there's a man that is in jail for preaching the gospel.
Yes.
Not because he stole something, not because he murdered somebody. He's in jail because he's preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Wow. So I know we have to be very, very careful about articulating that because we don't know who's on the other side of that smartphone or that computer. But can we walk down that path as lightly as you deem fit?
You've heard of other pastors being arrested in dark countries, and there's a lot of social justice platforms. What's remarkable is this pastor, he has an opportunity to get bailed out, but he would rather be in jail right now because it gives him an opportunity to pray with people. And, this guy, he's the Indiana Jones of faith. If you remember, the Indiana Jones movie when he's going after the Holy Grail and there's that invisible stone bridge and he has to take that leap of faith. And that's what he does every day. He prays about something and he walks like God's already answered that prayer. And that's the kind of incredible faith this guy has. And he leads a network of pastors that are all over India. And these pastors are the ones that are doing the work. They're rescuing these kids. They're reaching the unreached. And all we do is raise the awareness and support.
David, you saying that this pastor is in jail for preaching the gospel, has the opportunity to be bailed out, but doesn't want to be bailed out because he can pray for the people. Let me let you follow up with that, but let me tell you about Pastor David Donker, who is out of Ghana. And he said something to me in 2016 at an event that we had here in Houston. He was coming down to showcase some of the things that he's doing in his country. And he told me, he said, Pastor, when we brought him around, he said, it's amazing to see what America can do without God. When he's going into and seeing the big buildings and the mega churches and things of that nature. And he says, in our country, because he's in the remote villages of Ghana, so he's not in the metroplex or anything like that. He says, we pray, God, give us our daily bread, literally. Mm-hmm. He said, that is a literal prayer. He say, I know that you guys pray when you get food, but we pray that God would give us food every single day. You have this pastor that is literally living a Paul experience. He could get out of jail, but chooses to keep that money and use it to go and get other kids, and uses this opportunity of being in prison as a ministry opportunity.
Everything is a ministry opportunity. When you look at countries and you hear stories of revival and how the church is growing in places like China that are closed, and you hear numbers about the number of Christians in China that are going to outpace the number of Christians in America. And you look at the persecution that these people face, like our partner pastor, and it's because there's a cost to your faith, and it's free here. A lot of people go to church here because they want to be entertained. I want to hear a good message that makes me feel good, that motivates me. I want to hear some good music.
Yeah.
And have that air conditioning blowing on my neck. And that's part of that wake-up call that we need here as a society.
So how do we get there, Dave? Because China in 2018, if you've never subscribed to this particular newsletter called Voice of the Martyrs, which is something that I follow very, very diligently. China in 2018 sent 362 missionaries to America.
Yeah.
China, communist China,
Yeah.
communist China that does not have a freedom of religion. They have to do underground churches.
Yeah.
Sent over 300 missionaries to America to evangelize America.
Yeah. In places like China and India, over 90% of the pastors do not have a church. It's a house church. It's not brick and mortar. And if you ask 99% of Americans, they're going to say 99% of pastors have
churches.
Have a church.
Even if it's a storefront with two people in it, they got a church.
There you go.
Man, so how do we, I hate to keep circling back around to this, but, we have to be able to try to give some practicality about how do we, connect A to B. People are looking and they're listening and they're saying, wow, I didn't know about that, man. That's wow, I didn't know about that. So the moment will grasp them. But within 15 minutes of them watching this podcast, things in life are going to happen. And soon this aha moment will be on the back burner. So how do you connect them to Child Freedom Coalition?
I just want to encourage people to get involved, to make a difference. When you hear about these problems of how our society's doing and all of our social injustice, all of our unrest, you can only do what you can do and what God can do through you, most importantly. So I just want to encourage people, whether you get involved with your church, don't go to be entertained. Go and make a difference. Mm-hmm. If you want to get involved in something in your local community, do that. Do something. Get involved. That's what God wants us to do. Make a difference. So for us, that's what we're trying to do. And why is it India? Because that's the least of these to us, are these kids. So if you want to learn more about what we're doing, it's childfreedom.org, childfreedom, one word, and we're on social media. We don't post our videos publicly because we want to protect the privacy of, who we're working with. But it's a challenge of trying to raise awareness while not, raising too much awareness.
Yeah, there's a balance that you got to play.
Yeah, because the stories that we have, we could literally go to the media and it should be on the 6 o'clock news, but if it was, then that would be the end of these pastors that are literally putting their life on the line every day.
So let's talk just for a second, Dave, on what you just said. There is everybody knows the passage in John chapter 11 when Jesus hears that Lazarus had died. And his response to that was, good. We're going to stay here a couple more days. Mm-hmm. And communication between him and his disciples, Jesus says, okay, let's go. When he gets to where Lazarus was, Mary comes out, falls at his feet, start crying. Master, if you had only been here, my brother would have not died. Martha comes right after that. And Jesus sees the pain in their heart because their brother had passed. And then the Bible says very, very shortly but succinctly that Jesus wept. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of sermons about that. You can find them 1,000,000 on YouTube. But as I look at that passage, I relate that to, and this is my experience, so this is where I'm contextualizing at. I look at that in regards to America right now. That Jesus is weeping because the things that we're focusing on so much, putting all of our time, energy, and effort in, are temporal. It doesn't move the needle in eternity. We are fighting on party lines, fighting racially, fighting this, fighting that. But all of those fights are temporary. They don't move the kingdom. They don't better people so that those better people can go out and better other people, like what's happening when these kids get jobs and then they sew back into an organization that help them to get out. And so they can better people help to better other people. And I believe that, and I truly believe this day, so we're sitting in churches and we're becoming reservoirs of the word. We are getting so much word. We're getting, even through the pandemic when you couldn't gather into churches, you still got online and got a sermon over here, sermon over there, sermon over here, sermon over there. So you got all of this sermon material built up over years. But God doesn't desire for us to be a reservoir. He desires for us to be a river. So God wants to flow through us. He don't want to build us up so that we these spiritual pie in the sky guys. So when you're talking to somebody about getting engaged, that's a challenge. It may seem easy to say, but having somebody get off of the back pew and say, man, going up and say, I want to participate in this ministry, I want to get involved with this organization, that's a scary moment because it's easier and it's much more comfortable for me to drop a couple of buckets or a couple of dimes in the bucket and say, Pastor, you go handle that.
Yeah.
That's what we're paying you for, David.
Yeah.
You go to India. That's what we're paying you for. You come back, give me a video, make me feel good about myself. But engaging me in the process is a very difficult thing to do. And so I believe that right now, and I am praying for a revival day. I'm praying that God would strike the hearts of us in America and bring us to a place of repentance, so that we will fall down at his knees and he would usher in the Shekinah glory of God, so that men and women can realize that the differences that we have apart, those things are minute in compared to what we have in common. Yeah. Brother, me and you have talked about this at great lengths. You are a white man if the people at home who are on Spotify, who are on Apple, you are a 100% white man. I am a bona fide white man. I am a bona fide black man.
Yes.
We crushed the stereotype of saying that white and black can't get along. I have a genuine love and respect for you, as I know that you have for me.
Yes.
And all the things that we are fighting right now in this land are temporary. So when you hear stuff about what's going on like that and the problems and the progress that you're making, about how you're bettering these kids' lives, and these kids are looking back and saying, go get my brother, go get my sister, because I want their lives to be better as well. Engaging people in this particular forum is sometimes challenging, David. It's very challenging. Not that it's not without an end result. I believe that God can work through it. But I want people to look at Child Freedom Coalition and say, man, how can I get involved in this?
Yeah.
What's the grassroots level? So that is a sponsorship. What is the grassroots level of connecting with David and Child Freedom Coalition?
Yeah. That's really how our growth is, like any other business, any other church. If I'm an insurance agent or a real estate broker, it's word-of-mouth referral. And you and I know that the most powerful thing that we can do isn't with what's in our pocketbook. It's in prayer. And so we have prayer warriors that are praying up these kids every day. And these kids are praying for the people here that are involved every day. And again, these kids are relying on miracles to meet their needs. And like I said earlier, they possess nothing, but they have everything. They're not in want. And for us to be able to live like that, getting away from all of our distractions and all of our first world problems sounds really refreshing to me. I pray for a revival as well, brother.
You remember when we were in a hotel and the kids were gathered upstairs into this particular building. I had to go up some stairs to get up there to the top level. And I don't know, it was 200 or so kids up there, maybe a little bit more. It was a lot of them.
Yeah, that was an apartment building we were leasing when we were still building our children's home. And
these kids...
700 kids at that time.
700 kids.
Yeah.
David, these kids had the audacity in unison to stretch out their hands and start praying for Pastor Holman, an American pastor. these kids that were rescued from rock quarries, from despicable conditions, treated in ways that my mind has a hard time wrapping itself around. You know, these kids stretched out their hand and prayed for me, an American pastor, who in a few days was going to get on a plane and come back to the United States. And here they are praying fervently for me, thanking me for coming to see them. I can't really quantify, put it into words, that feeling that I reflect on often.
I want to tell you two things. These kids are taught to take prayer very seriously. So when you pray, you get on your knees. And when you raise your hands asking your Father for help, you don't raise your hands with your palms out forward, because if you do that, you can lift yourself up. When you pray, you put your palms inward and you ask your Father to lift you up. So that's how seriously they take prayer. It's incredible. The second thing I want to tell you is that we're so blessed to live. Just living in America, you're in the top 3 percentile, regardless of what your income is. You've won the lottery just by being born and living here. And it was one of my earlier trips, and on the way to the airport, the city was probably about 5 or 7 million people. It was a large city, and in the middle of the city is this garbage dump that was about 5 or 6 acres. And our pastor friend said there are about 1,500 families that live in this little garbage dump, and little blue tarp huts, 8x8 cardboard, plywood. You've seen that kind of stuff before. And this was an untouchable village living in the middle of the city, and these parents would purposefully maim their own children so that they would make more money when they begged on the streets. And I had my backpack with me. My suitcase was in the van, and I had some candy. I was handing out some candy to the kids, and they were laughing and smiling. And I'd forgot to put on my tennis shoes. I was wearing my flip-flops. And normally when I get to the airport, I'll put on my tennis shoes, and I had left them in my suitcase. So when I got to the airport, I still had my flip-flops on from walking through that dump, and my feet were just caked in dust and dirt and grime. And I checked in, and my airline had bumped me from domestic class to business class. And so I sat down, and they brought me a glass of champagne and some nuts, the stewardess or the flight attendant did. And, I looked at my surroundings, and I said, where I am right now represents the top, 0.001 percentile of what people on this planet get to experience as far as, what is represented by wealth. And I'm looking at my dirty feet and just thinking about where I just came from. And that was at the bottom 0.001% of, poverty and despair. And what a contrast that was. That's stayed with me, through today. And, I think about that despair. We live in a country now that has everything, but we're full of despair. We're looking for fulfillment, and we're looking for answers in places that are not going to give us the answer. It's not going to give us fulfillment. So that's why I'm right with you, brother. We need that revival.
My friend, let me tell you. Yeah. Sometimes, when you start thinking about, these Christian principles that we expound on a Sunday by Sunday basis, that, one of the most starkest scriptures in all of the Bible is in Judges 17, when Samson was with Delilah and she had given out his secret about his hair, and the Philistines come in and Delilah says to Samson, "Wake up." And then Samson says, "I will shake myself as I normally did." But then it says that Samson did not know that the Spirit of the Lord had departed. He had gotten so comfortable with God. He had gotten so comfortable with the anointing, so comfortable with God that he didn't even know that God had left him. It's a stark reminder that, as we come in Sunday after Sunday, 3 praise songs, preach, offering, benediction, out the door, bluebies, saltgrass, home, nap, wake up for Monday. We get so comfortable in the routine of religion that we forget about God. And it's in these moments to where, Dave, my heart aches, because I think the view that I share, only a few God has given that unique privilege to, because they've seen other things and they're able to incorporate into their overall messages the experience from other places, which gives you such a profound perspective that otherwise you just can't enjoy. So all the stuff that's going on in America, we don't sweep it under the rug as if it's not important. But if you are a born again believer, God has told us in Matthew 25, what you've done to the least of them, you've done unto me. He said, when you go and visit somebody in prison, you go and visit me. When you go and visit somebody in the hospital, you go and visit me. When you give them a cup of water, when you give them a plate of food, you're doing that unto me. And so I really want to, for these last couple of minutes there, I want you to, as best, and you're a preacher at heart. You come from some good stock. Pastor Fenton Moorhead, who is a great friend of the ministry. You come from some good stock. So I just want to give you a couple of minutes to, from the bottom of your heart, however the Lord leads up on you, is to talk to that person right now. And there are many people like this, Dave. They feel like they have a tugging that I can do more, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I want to do more. I know there's something more that I can be doing, but I don't know what.
Yeah.
So help that person right now.
There's 2 simple words: go and do. So where to go and what to do, there's only one person that's going to give you that answer, and that's God. So that's something that you need to pray about. And it doesn't have to be across the planet, in a dark corner of the world. It can be down the street. It can be next door. So I just want to encourage people to go and do and make a difference. And that can be support. It could be praying for your pastor. It can be your next door neighbor making a difference and, being a light, and just being obedient to the Holy Spirit. There's a pastor friend of mine that I love this saying. It's so simple. Every day, it's whatever you say, I will obey. And that's his prayer. And just if you ask God to reveal that, he's going to reveal it to you. So
that's scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my prayer for everybody that's listening to this or watching this is that God instills in their heart that desire, that yearning to be fulfilled and, just become transformed and renewed and discovers what their go and what their do is.
Now, I know that you've been in the same struggle that I have over the last year or so. The last mission trip that I took was February of 2020 into Belize. That's right before everything just kind of hit the fan. So I haven't been on a plane now for about a year, and I'm getting those angst right now.
Yeah.
talking to our international partners, trying to connect to them as much as I possibly can. But not being able to travel and visit our friends in these other countries has been a real thorn in my side. How you been adjusting to that?
It's definitely a brave new world. It was an adjustment from doing so much traveling, going to India 3 times a year and then traveling domestically, raising awareness, to shutting down was quite a shock. There's something that I've always prescribed to, and it's Andy Stanley that talks about this, and he describes it as whatever you do, be uniquely better. And so if that's your business, if that's your faith, and, what he was doing at his church, he didn't reinvent the church. He was just trying to do something a little bit different that was better than other people were doing. And the odds of Marcus Holman coming up with the next big thing of whatever the next thing is slim and none. And the same for me. So what you want to do is be a student, not a critic. And so let me give you an example. 25 years ago, when I was dating my wife, there were Blockbusters on every corner. And there was this little company called Netflix that had just come out. And you could order a DVD and they'd mail it to you.
Yeah.
You'd watch the movie and then send it
back.
back.
Yeah.
And so what Blockbuster and Netflix both feared was technology, streaming technology. They knew that was around the corner. And Netflix was a student of technology, of the next big thing. Blockbuster was a critic. And so you fast forward to today.
Yeah, come on now.
On everyone's TV
Yeah.
is Netflix.
Yeah.
And there's now, I think, one Blockbuster that is in existence, and that's it. So that's our approach. We want the ability to adapt. Our mission stays the same. But we want the ability to be able to turn on a dime if something like a pandemic creeps up and tries to hamper our ability to raise awareness and raise funds. So the blessing of, being in a pandemic in 2021 or 2020 is, technology.
Yeah.
So a lot of our connectivity is virtual, and Zoom and FaceTime and, in the ways that we try to connect with our partners. And so that is a blessing, but we're constantly being students of what's out there on the forefront. What can we take advantage of that makes our connectivity, more prevalent than anyone else's?
So now I know you did it before, but I want to give you some time to look into this camera, because I'm going to put your information, it'll be up on the screen as you are talking about it. So let's give the website, let's give phone numbers, let's give emails. How does a person right now that is watching, how do they connect with Child Freedom Coalition?
Yeah, thank you. So our website is childfreedom.org. We're available on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. I'd love to talk to anybody about it. My cell phone I give out is 214-493-0286. If you're going to hate on me, don't call. If it's a number I don't know, usually I'm not going to pick it up. So leave me a voicemail and I will call you back. But I'll answer any question that you have. Our website has a Shop for Good page, and our goal is to have that mimic something like Amazon.com, which is how we do a lot of our transactions these days. So instead of buying something for someone that doesn't need anything, then we've created a Shop for Good where something that you buy can really make a difference in the life of a rescued kid in India. So again, that's childfreedom.org, and there's several ways to navigate around that page. My email address is david@childfreedom.org.
I want to encourage you guys to get on this website and learn about this. Now, let me ask you, I know with the pandemic notwithstanding, are there any opportunities for vision trips? Do you guys do anything like that? What does that look like?
We hope to be able to crank those back up after
Okay.
COVID gets figured out.
Okay.
We know it's not going away, but once it gets figured out. But our vision casting trips are, as you can attest to, are pretty eye-opening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody that's watching us right now, from whatever platform that you're watching, we've talked about a whole lot of stuff, but I want to leave you with a couple of things. One, no matter where you are, no matter what walk of life you may be in right now, wherever you are, you can make a difference in that place. Decide to engage. The reason why our world is going in the direction that it is going in is because people are on the sidelines of life, being a critic. Wherever you are, you can engage. At whatever level, just engage. Everybody's not going to be able to stand behind the lectern, and everybody's not going to be able to get behind the microphone. But you can go and love on your neighbor. You can love your family. You can love your friends. You can do some very tangible things where you are right now to stem this evil tide that is bombarding the world. God has a great plan for us. God's plan is better than what we could ever have for ourselves. And so I want to encourage you that I know the problems may seem vast. I know they may seem insurmountable. I know they may seem like it's just too much and what can I do? But I want to encourage you that wherever God is tugging on your heart at, wherever that may be, I need you to start there. I need you to start there. And the first way that you start is with a yes. So wherever God is tugging you at, it may be small and insignificant to others. Just say yes right there. Just say yes right there. Yes for me started in 2010 when I was approached to go to Africa. Didn't know how I was going to pay for it because we were not in a financial position to afford $7,000. But I said yes. And with that one yes, God has opened up a whole new world. So I want to encourage you that you've heard about the stories. You know that it's going on. This is not just synonymous to India. This is a worldwide problem. But start where you're at. And the saying that we like to say is bloom where you're planted. Wherever you're at, start right there. David, let me tell you, brother, I love you, brother.
Love you, man.
This work resonates so strongly because I've seen it, man. The commitment to the gospel and the purity of the gospel is what I saw. Not the bells and whistles, not the fluff, but the purity of Christ and Christ alone. I saw that message. I witnessed it. The pastor, I witnessed this. Everybody, I've witnessed the Christ alone message. This is the real deal, folks. This is the real deal. This is not fluff. This is not to make you feel good. They are doing the work of the ministry. And so, man, I want to commend you. Your father, God bless his soul, was instrumental in what we do here at Bethel's Family, and what he did and how he mentored our pastor, Walter August Jr. So your family holds great, great presence in our ministry. And man, I just want to thank you for all that you do. God is going to bless you abundantly.
It's been an honor to be here with you, brother. And this church really means a lot to me. It meant a lot to my dad, my family. And we just appreciate your friendship and with Pastor August as well. So thank you for having me.
And so you have a platform anytime that you want to come on. If you got something else to highlight and we got some other stuff that we want to talk about, please know that you got a platform here. So just let me know. And you know we got our spot. We need to go ahead and put that on the calendar on a frequent basis. Because I definitely, man, I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I've been working on some R&B tunes. So.
I think we need to stay away from that. I think we need to stay away from that. I think we need to, I do want to lift up and just tell the people, without getting very specific, to continue to pray for the pastor in India. Continue for his well-being, for his strength, and for his boldness. Pray for the kids in India. As you get on childfreedom.org, these pictures are just going to blow your mind. These smiles, which is, the smiles, considering what they came out of, is That's so. Without further ado, man, thank you so very much. Give my regards to Marcy, to your entire family, to your mom. Let them know that we love them. That's not a pie in the sky stuff. We love you guys and love what you guys are doing. Now you're in Houston now, right? Or you're in Fulshear?
In Fulshear.
You're in Fulshear, so you're back in the community now.
Yeah. It's great to be back in Texas.
Great to be back.
Oh, yeah.
Great to be back. Man, so thank you so very much. I want to give you some last words or anything that you want to leave on the people's heart.
Thank you, MDH. It's great to see you, brother. So
that's my moniker.
thank you guys for tuning in and watching and putting up with this old white guy. Hey, it's an honor to be here, brother.
Man, God bless you. Everybody that thank you for tuning in to Studio B. Remember, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, IG, Spotify, wherever you access your podcast, that's where you can find us. And make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss one single episode of Studio B. Thank you very much for joining us, y'all. We'll see you next week.